I was speaking about my aunt. I was speaking about Zerafui, my father's cousin.
Wow.
Who sadly passed away a few years ago.
Wow.
And for the takeaway from my more than 10-minute address about Islamophobia in this race and in this city to be the question of my aunt tells you everything about Andrew Cuomo and his inability to reckon with a crisis of his own making.
Look at this fat.
In this world, there's two kinds of people, my friend. Those with loaded guns and those who dig. Broadcasting from a Montana wilderness fortress at the headwaters of the Missouri, this is Matt Christiansen Live.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is Matt Christiansen Live, a proud duct tape production for Wednesday, October 29th, 2025. Thank you for tuning in. Sitting shotgun tonight is someone new to the role, but not new to the show. Longtime caller Skulldugger, making his debut in the shotgun seat. Welcome.
Saddle up, partner. Thank you.
Now, is a skulldugger one who engages in skullduggery?
It's sort of a noun that I created, a proper noun that I created out of the word skullduggery.
Okay, it's proper. I didn't capitalize the S.
I just like lopping off the end of it, and hey, that sounds like a good handle.
Out of curiosity, earlier today I was sorry. Can you hear that car alarm?
No.
Oh,
a little bit, yeah.
Thank God, a theft is being prevented right now. You know. Anyway, I was looking up skullduggery because I'll drop that word occasionally. It's a great word, but I wasn't sure I technically knew the definition. I know it means like shenanigans or tomfoolery. It's usually deployed with that kind of silly word.
It's kind of a more malignant version of tomfoolery. Like tomfoolery is kind of a fun kind of you're like a rascal. Skullduggery is like underhanded trickery.
Yes, and I thought maybe it had origins that were linked to like grave digging or something. Like skullduggery is digging up skulls or like grave robbing. Right. But no, it's not. That's not where it comes from. It's like just some German word that sounds like skull. So there's your educational moment for the day. Anyway, for people who don't know, they've probably heard your voice calling the show regularly, but who is Skulldugger to the extent you're comfortable sharing?
Yeah, I'm just a simple dude. I live in the East Bay area in California.
My condolences.
So that's a struggle, but you know, we take it day by day.
You weren't there at the Alameda Coast Guard shooting the other day, were you?
No, thank God.
Did they release who that guy was or is?
I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, I did my time in that town, and I haven't been back for many years now, and I don't intend on returning.
Alameda's a fun place. That's a weird little island.
It is. It could be. Everything about the Bay Area could be very cool if it wasn't the way that it was. I understand why people would want to live in California, even if it's not really for me. But given the government that exists there and sort of the cultural decay, it'll ruin itself, and then people will have to go back and rebuild it.
Yes.
But anyway, in the news tonight, House Republicans, after their investigation, they've declared Biden's Autopen pardons void, and they've now prompted the Justice Department to investigate. Get to work, Pam. Will there be any real legal challenge? I hope so, because I think they're actually, it's not just accountability for the Biden administration is important, but I think these are legitimately important constitutional questions about what powers can be delegated. Can you just hand off a constitutional power to a guy or a machine? These things should be addressed by the Supreme Court. I actually am not demanding my own political victory in the form of sticking it to Biden as much as, especially we entered like we're not, as we get more and more into a technological era, like we're going to talk about AI later in the show too. In the future, are the robots going to be signing everything? We need clarity. We need 21st century clarity.
We'll just wait until we get our first robot president, you know?
We probably had that with Joe.
Well, so the interesting thing about this issue is in order to get an answer that's not like to the question, can you annul these pardons based on the Autopen signing? In order to get an answer that is, firm, it would have to make it to the Supreme Court. Like
and I assume that would be the
this
intent,
is a constitutional question, and once it gets there, they would have to rule on whether or not it had standing to even question it. There is only one exception to the pardon privilege. The pardon power is plenary. It is without check within the Constitution. It's pretty clear that the only exception is in matters of impeachment.
I mean, yes. I want to get into the technicals a little later, even though I'm glad we both share some interest in this. This should be entertaining. But before we get into that stuff, more stuff that's coming later in the show. I mentioned the AI issue. Well, that's in the context of layoffs. Amazon is the latest company to lay off, in their case, I think 14,000 workers, citing AI, investments in machine learning. How do we interpret this? Is this good for efficiency? Is this necessary reduction in a bloated company? Are we going to get better products faster? Or is this another indicator of the robot future? Gavin Newsom told a great story about his humble basketball roots. I don't know if you saw that, but he was just eating Wonder Bread and shooting free throws. That was the Gavin Newsom younger years story. Zohran Mamdani mentioned this on the Sunday stream, his story about how his auntie was afraid to ride the subway after 9/11 wearing a hijab. I should have assumed that story was fake. No, it wasn't his aunt. It was, I always have trouble pronouncing that word. Is aunt? I go back and forth. I'm going with aunt. But it wasn't his aunt. It was his dad's cousin. And I don't know why you substitute the word aunt for that. But anyway, it's Andrew Cuomo's fault. We'll get into that. Plus, of course, we'll take calls, voicemails, emails, and super chat. If you'd like to call the show, you can do that using the Discord server linked in the description. There are instructions and help available for you on the server. You can also leave a voicemail. It's not too late. You can use the number in the description. Leave a voicemail. We'll check in on those later in the show. But I got to say hello to our friendly listener-owned businesses for the evening, or our featured listener-owned business. That's our friends at Kineo Mountain Woodsmithing. These are high-quality, handmade, premium hardwood cutting boards, charcuterie boards, serving trays, and more, all of which are great gift options or the perfect piece to class up your kitchen or anywhere else in your home. All Kineo Mountain's woodsmithing products are made in Colorado from premium domestic hardwood sources. And in addition to that quality, the best part about Kineo Mountain's products, they're fully customizable. Not just in materials, but in engravings too. So if you'd like to personalize a gift, that can be arranged. Or if you have a big custom project in mind, that can be arranged too. There is no project too big or too small. Get in touch with Kineo Mountain Woodsmithing at kineowood.com. And Kineo has a special offering just in time for Christmas. It's, of course, almost time to start thinking about how you're going to decorate your tree and decorate your home. Even though I have personal animosity toward people who already have their Christmas lights out before Halloween. I won't get into that. If you want to make a Christmas purchase from Kineo Mountain Woodsmithing, that is allowed. You can get a carved maple or walnut Santa Claus ornament, 2.5 inches tall, small enough for a little tree, big enough for a large tree. Also makes a great gift or a great piece for your home. And like all Kineo Mountain Woodsmithing products, it's the absolute highest quality woodworking that will last you forever. 10% off for listeners of this show. All Kineo Mountain Woodsmithing products and services using promo code MATT10 at checkout. Promo code MATT10 at kineowood.com, kineowood.com. And don't forget our friends over at Hero Soap Company as well. Of course, bar soap, shampoo, conditioner, and more. Great smelling all-natural products. Portion of the sales benefit military and first responder charities. You can get my signature scents, Timberline and Old West, but there's a returning favorite from our friends at Hero Soap Company as well. Now, outside of my own signature scents, Skulldugger, course, I will always say that Timberline and Old West are the finest scent offerings that Hero Soap has. But lemongrass and spearmint are back. And with all due respect to spearmint, lemongrass is the finest offering from Hero outside of my own offering. It smells like the lemon drop candy. So it's back. You can get any of these fine offerings from Hero Soap Company, 10% off using promo code MCListener, 10% off everything from our friends at herosoapcompany.com, promo code MCListener. Well, just in time for Halloween, I guess now we know what happens when you cross Dr. Fauci lab experiments with Indian truck drivers, which have been in the news lately. Now, my sources say, Skulldugger, that the truck driver in this case actually was able to communicate what his cargo was to authorities. So I'm assuming he's not, he might not, he at least speaks English, unlike many of the Indian drivers lately. But did you hear about this? Yesterday morning, a truck carrying several rhesus monkeys from Tulane University, that's in New Orleans, crashed on Interstate 59 in southeast Mississippi, and the monkeys escaped, and the driver told sheriff's deputies that the monkeys were a potential threat. Why are they a threat? Well, they are physically aggressive. They might attack you, but they also have hepatitis C, herpes, and COVID. So these sheriff's deputies apparently went monkey hunting. They killed several of them. Or what was the term they used? Eliminated, something like that. I take it to mean they just shot the monkeys, but I'm not sure exactly how they neutralized the possible threat. But at least 3 of these monkeys remain on the loose. Here's some news reporting on the story this morning.
3 monkeys remain on the loose this morning after a truck transporting research animals overturned in Mississippi. Nearly 24 rhesus monkeys were being taken from Tulane University to other research facilities when the accident happened. Officials say most of the animals are accounted for, but 5 were put down because of concerns that the monkeys were dangerous. Tulane staff are working with local authorities to search for the 3 missing primates.
So the 3 are I guess out causing the zombie apocalypse with monkey COVID herpes. At least I thought. But now Tulane is issuing a statement and saying that the monkeys are not diseased. Headline local Fox 13. University says escaped monkeys in Mississippi are not diseased. Okay, well, that's good. They say that contrary to the truck driver's report to the local sheriff's deputies, these monkeys have actually been recently tested, and they do not have any of these pathogens or diseases. They are pathogen-free. Now, my question is, why would the driver say that these are diseased, dangerous monkeys while citing specific diseases that they have if they're actually pathogen-free? So I'm not sure I buy the story from the university that these are not diseased monkeys.
Yeah. Unless they told the driver, hey, these are all diseased monkeys, in order to make sure that the driver doesn't, mess with the monkeys. Like, that's the only explanation I could come up with as to why the driver is assuming he's hauling infected monkeys when in fact he's not. They
planned on him being extra safe, is what you're saying. Hey, don't crash the truck. The monkeys are diseased. Don't worry about it. They're not really diseased. We just want to be careful. Maybe.
I don't know. Maybe they've had an issue with, drivers messing with the cargo. And so in order to make sure he was hands off the monkeys, they're like, hey, man, you don't want to touch these monkeys. They got everything. They got hepatitis C. They got herpes. They got COVID.
I mean, whatever's going on, these are verified lab monkeys. They're yes. Testing something on them, so I wouldn't trust them. I just think they don't want people to shoot the monkeys. They're not diseased. They're very nice. Please don't shoot our property. I think it's something like that.
This also brings up an interesting conversation about the difference between infection and carrying. Like,
yeah, well,
the phrasing carry a disease without being infected by it.
Yes, and the phrasing, I wondered if it was careful in that way. Jasper County Sheriff's Office originally reported the monkeys had Hep C, herpes, and COVID, Anyone who came into contact with the monkeys should be wearing protective equipment. Tulane quickly disputed that claim, saying the monkeys were not infectious, to your point. But not infectious does not necessarily mean not diseased, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the headline says not diseased, but that's not what the Tulane statement says. But they do say pathogen free, so I guess, you won't get a disease from the monkeys, you're supposed to believe. But anyway.
Hey, I saw the movie Outbreak. This sounds like Outbreak 2.
You know who was testing on the monkeys? Probably Dr. Fauci. And you know who my preferred test candidate for challenging these invalid pardons is? Dr. Fauci. More on that in a moment. But ever since it was revealed that many of Joe Biden's end-of-term pardons were signed by Autopen as he left the presidency earlier this year, there have been legal questions of what to make of that, as we were just discussing. If the president doesn't personally sign the document, and if there are questions about whether he even knew what he was signing, if he was signing it, or did he even know if he delegated someone else to take action on his behalf, do the pardons count? That's really the question here. And as you were mentioning, Skulldugger, the Constitution's presidential pardon power is broad, effectively unlimited. You mentioned no pardoning for impeachment. That, of course, is one of the exceptions. The Supreme Court has said no pardoning for future crimes, which makes sense, even though Joe Biden's pardons were so broad, they might as well have been into the future, but they technically weren't. And then pardoning applies to federal crimes only, right? The president can't, pardon a state crime, for example. But yeah, these things that's really it. There is no check, like you said, where Congress can say, come on, man, that pardon is totally ridiculous. We're going to invalidate it. We've never... So
the only argument you can make is that it wasn't the president who made the pardon. And thus, then it would be theoretically void on delivery.
So when you say no check... in theory, the Supreme Court is a check on all matters constitutional, but we've certainly never seen them make a check beyond the no future pardons. I think is the only. Maybe I can't even remember. There's just a handful of pardon cases from the Supreme Court. They've almost never touched it because the language is very plain. So there's also the question of whether the Supreme Court would even touch it in this case.
I strongly doubt that this Supreme Court would actually touch this one.
They might just leave it alone. But I still think you got to test it. Yeah,
I guess I don't see anything really happening because of this. Like you'd have to be able
ruin
to
my party.
Definitively prove that Joe Biden was not behind the signing of these.
Yeah, and the problem is they can wheel Joe Biden in there and say, "Hey, did you do this?" "Oh yeah, I remember that." Yeah. And then that's kind of over. Yeah. But I still want to entertain the possibility because to me, this is kind of like the Comey prosecution, the Letitia James prosecution. They're low likelihood of success, but you kind of still have to do it anyway. That's kind of the box I put this in. But you're right that the only question the Supreme Court would possibly evaluate is, did the president actually issue these pardons? If not, then they were not done in accordance with the Constitution, and they are invalid, if you could prove that definitively. And that's what House Republicans have been investigating for months, and now the House Oversight Committee, under Chairman James Comer, issued this report yesterday. They're saying Biden's Autopen pardons are illegitimate. That's the language they use, illegitimate, because he suffered from mental decline while he was leaving office or during his time in office. And my problem here is their language is, it's not definitive. He could have been unaware of the pardon contents. Well, anybody looking at him knows he could be unaware of a lot of things. To your point, we need proof that he was not aware at all. I don't know that he was. That.
They never began 25th Amendment procedures on him. So you can go ahead and say he was in a state of mental decline. Sure, great. Yes, he was. But he was still legitimately the president under those mental decline, under that mental decline status. He was a mentally declined president of the United States. Like, that's just the reality, because nobody ever stepped forward and attempted to actually take the authority away from him. He retained the authority until Trump was inaugurated.
So long as he has a pulse, I guess he technically still is, you know?
Yeah.
But, okay, so they issue this report. Biden could have been unaware. All right. The general conclusion of the report is that without contemporaneous written approval from the president, we don't actually know whether he approved these pardons or not. Without that knowledge, the pardons are presumably void, is the argument. But I think this is actually the rare case where you actually do have to prove a negative in that way. Like, is the legal presumption valid or is the legal presumption invalid? And to the extent Joe Biden's signature is on it, I would assume the presumption is valid unless you can show the negative. He didn't have knowledge and someone else did it totally unbeknownst to him.
Yes, you would have to proceed under the assumption that he had something to do with these. I mean, it could just come down to, and this is one of those things where I think the Republicans need to be very careful how far they want to push this, and they should be willing to jump off of this fairly quickly. You're talking about somebody who was diagnosed with multiple issues during his presidency, including Parkinson's.
Yeah, he's like a monkey escaped from a truck. Who knows what diseases he has?
So we know that he has Parkinson's. And so it could just be that he would, you can make the argument, he was using the Autopen because he was having difficulty actually, controlling a pen at his age. And once you go down that route, you really want to start arguing with that? That's a loss. That's a losing cause. So unless you have the goods, unless you have the dead to right goods, and for a fact that somebody else was behind these Autopen signings and that the president had no knowledge of them, which I don't know how you would get that information, but unless you have it and can prove it, the Republicans need to be very willing to jump off of this one.
I want to see it through, but we'll talk more about it as we go. So
it'd be great.
Is Pam Bondi going to see it through is the question, because this hey man,
does Pam Bondi do anything?
She's trying. We've reversed now. I remember when you used to be a Pam Bondi simp calling into this.
I was not a simp. I just
look at her flowing blonde locks. She looks so wonderful for her age. I love what she's doing. No, I know you just didn't. I remember.
I mean, she looks a lot better than Merrick Garland. So that.
Hopefully that's not terribly difficult. But anyway, okay. So the Oversight Committee sends a letter corresponding with this report to Pam Bondi. It says, hey, Pam, you should investigate this and, I don't know, do something about it. Okay, but the House Oversight has been investigating this for months. I'm not sure what findings of fact Pam Bondi is supposed to discover that they didn't discover. But the only way to test this theory, if you're Pam Bondi, you want action from Pam Bondi, you can't really just go to the court system and say, we don't believe these pardons are valid, because you don't really, I don't know if that would be a standing issue, but they're going to have to, the only way that I can see is they're going to have to try to prosecute one of the pardoned people. And you're going to have to challenge the basis of the pardon pursuant to that prosecution. So you have to make a selection if you're going to do this. If you're Pam Bondi or whoever the federal prosecutor assigned to this case is. Your Autopen pardon options do not include Hunter Biden, because that was an actual Joe Biden signature. The Autopen options include Joe Biden's siblings, his brothers and his sister. You have former Joint Chiefs Chair Mark Milley, and you have now Senator Adam Schiff. And there's a whole bunch of people who were kind of group pardoned. But do you just want to pick out a guy who's less known? If we're doing the political prosecution revenge tour, which I think honest people will acknowledge that's what this is and argue that it's necessary rather than that's not what this is. The guy I want to be the test case for the pardon issue here is Dr. Fauci, the monkey AIDS king himself. Yeah. Why do I want Dr. Fauci? Number one, I want accountability for what he did during COVID. I think that's very important. But number two, he very clearly lied to Congress. He said that his NIH never funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan. They provably did through the EcoHealth Alliance nonprofit that was subcontracting to the Wuhan lab. And Rand Paul, after uncovering that information, gave Dr. Fauci an out in Congress under oath. Here's this information. Do you want to clarify or retract your prior statement about the NIH not funding gain-of-function research in Wuhan? And Dr. Fauci, stone-faced, called him a liar and said he stands by his commentary. Dr. Fauci definitively lied to Congress under oath. This is a case that should be prosecuted. It's not just testing the validity of the pardon. It's a prosecution that should happen. So to me, it's both. And what happens if you do this is you bring that case to a district court judge says, that guy's pardoned. What are you talking about? You appeal it, goes to the appeals court. That guy's pardoned. What are you talking about? You ask the Supreme Court to review the case. And as you said earlier, I think the most likely outcome is probably the Supreme Court just lets that appeals court decision stand, or they issue something very quick themselves. Yeah, that guy's pardoned. Not interested. But maybe they hear it. And I think it's important to try, because I think that the questions surrounding the pardon power here are important. Like, Biden was maybe I don't know if he was the first Autopen pardon president, but I'm going to doubt that other presidents have used the pardon power through Autopen on this scale before. I do think we need clarity on what proper exercise of these constitutional powers are. Does the man himself have to do it, or are robots okay? Who can get delegated this power? So even though I agree with you that I think the Supreme Court is unlikely to review the matter and they're going to defer to what appears to be pretty plain constitutional language, I still think you run the test, and I want Dr. Fauci. Do you disagree?
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't you love to hear Ketanji Brown Jackson weigh in on this issue? Just to see if she even understands what the issue is?
How would she phrase it? Remember, she had that famous line, I'm concerned your view of the First Amendment significantly hamstrings the government, something like that.
Yeah, it does. That's the point.
Yeah. Actually, she would probably lecture me on simple terms. You understand that the pardon power means the president can just pardon people, period, right? And I'd be like, oh, yeah, if Ketanji Brown Jackson can explain it that simply, then it probably is that simple.
Yeah.
But I want Pam Bondi to take up the matter. Fauci would be my preference. And if she does, that will go a long way to totally redeeming herself, Dumb and Dumber style.
The other thing that she can do is, and one of the things that the Oversight Committee wouldn't be able to do as effectively. They can because they have subpoena power. But she could take a look into anybody who is still around from an executive branch level, especially Secret Service. So if there's anybody still in the building that would have knowledge of this, or anybody who left recently, the AG would be able to get those conversations happening a lot quicker than Congress would.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I was wondering why does she need to do what I thought would be probably a duplicate investigation, but maybe it wouldn't be. Maybe there would be new information uncovered. Now, the problem, as I mentioned, is not only do you have a presumption that Biden signed these even if they were auto-penned, you also have Biden commentary saying, yeah, I did that. And I assume if there were any questions of fact, whether that would happen at the trial court, or I don't know if the Supreme Court would review the question of fact or not. But Joe Biden is still alive, allegedly. And you can just bring him to that court and say, hey, did you intend to do this? Yeah, that's what I meant. And he's already done that to some extent. Now, granted, it was not in a court setting. It wasn't under penalty of perjury. But he talked to the New York Times this summer in July. And they said, all those pardons that you did, was that what you intended to do? Did you have knowledge of those? And he said, yeah. Now, some of them were big categorical group pardons. Like I said, people who committed crimes X, Y, and Z under circumstances A, B, and C are pardoned. And I wasn't aware of every single individual under that umbrella, but I still made the categorical decision. And as far as the high profile people, yeah, I made all those decisions myself.
Was the January 6th committee one of the auto-pens, or was that one that's confirmed that he signed?
I know Schiff was auto-penned. But there was a pardon for, was it everybody on the committee, or I can't remember.
It was it was the whole committee.
I don't know the answer to that, whether that's auto-pen or not.
That would be another interesting one to test as well, because if you can get that one overturned and you can actually start prosecuting some of the people who definitely deprived people of their civil rights in those proceedings, it would go a long way into allowing us to actually move on from January 6th if we can actually start to get.
That'll never be allowed. You'll be hearing about that in the 2028 campaign.
I know. Or we just wait until the next worst thing, because January 6th officially replaced Charlottesville. So
that's true. You don't hear about Charlotte. Well, I guess sometimes you hear the very fine people on both sides hoax. But yeah, January 6th did kind of usurp that role. But you know what I'd like to see, and it won't happen. I don't think a court would ever compel this. But there's a very easy way to test. Joe Biden says, yeah, I approved every single one. Just a simple question of, okay, you pardoned Mark Milley in relation to what and why? What is Joe Biden's answer? You pardoned Adam Schiff in relation to what and why? Yep. Same thing for Fauci. They're never going to put that test before him, but that's the way that you know for sure, did Biden intend it or not? If he can't explain his reasons for pardoning this person or why he thought this person was under threat, then it's a pretty good indicator he didn't do it. But yeah, in closing, my thoughts, I think it's worth pursuing, even if the likelihood of success, as in like pardons overturned, Fauci and company prosecuted, that likelihood is low. I think that the legal questions here are significant enough that you gotta at least give it a shot. So I hope that they do.
Yeah, it's always nice to get interesting constitutional questions answered.
I don't know if you saw this segment, but before we move on from the topic, I want to play a segment from CNN debate on the matter. And beyond the questions of fact, like did Joe Biden sign these, and the legal questions about whether they're valid, the thing that infuriates me about the pardon debate is the gaslighting that's going on. And by that, I mean people trying to convince us that this is all totally normal, that Joe Biden's activities with his Autopen, they're not outside the norm at all. So on CNN, there was a former ICE official, and he's a legal analyst for CNN. His name's Elliot Williams. And he said that because every president uses Autopens in some capacity, and of course every president delegates authority in some capacity, this is all just totally normal. This happens all the time. We just don't know about it. And then Republican analyst Scott Jennings challenged him.
Tradition of auto pens has existed in every presidential administration across parties. I had an auto pen when I worked at ICE, and so it's a common practice.
Did you allow people to use the name Elliot Williams without your knowledge of the document or what was on the page?
I don't recall. Here's the question. Was my authority delegated to that person? And I think they do have the authority to do so. Laws and and I'm serious, Scott, laws and regulations.
The authority to delegate pardons and executive orders, the President of the United States can say, you unelected staffer can go sign my name on a document that I've never seen for a decision that I've never made?
Quite often, the United States Code delegates authority. So through the President of the United States, through the Attorney General, whatever else, X person can carry out a function. And certainly that could be the case. Now, Donald Trump, for instance, in his first term, pardoned like 1,600 people. And I have a hard time believing that he was aware of every single person that he was pardoning. One could make a challenge. Every president does this. Now, if it's a question about Biden's fitness for office, did he know what he was? Of course, raise that question. But I just, one, given how vast the pardon power is, and two, given how comprehensive the use of autopens are across administrations, I have a hard time seeing a legal challenge.
Nobody can be delegated the pardon power.
Yes.
It is a constitutional power.
Yes.
And I don't really think you can delegate the executive order power either, because the executive has to make the order.
Are you retarded?
Now, I don't know how this guy is a legal analyst, because that is among some of the worst legal analysis I've ever heard. When he cites U.S. code, you're talking about statutes, laws passed by Congress. Yes, Congress often delegates authority by statute. Cool. You know what Congress can't do? Pass a law to modify the presidential pardon power, because the presidential pardon power is constitutionally defined. Now, U.S. code delegating authority has no meaning whatsoever to whether the presidential pardon power can be delegated. It's a constitutionally defined power.
Yes.
stuff governed by U.S. code is not. So I have no idea what that guy's talking about when he brings that up.
Well, there's a big issue in this as well, in trying to compare this to congressional use of an Autopen, where the delegation of privilege and authority is a lot different in Congress. Congress is a collective body. Congress also does not have a vesting clause. So the who gets to do what when is a lot looser. There's not real great like hard rules defining exactly who gets to do what when. So bending those rules becomes a lot easier. When you get to the executive, you have a vesting clause, which means this one person has these authorities. This one person gets
and it
to
has
do
to be
these
that
things.
way.
It has to be that way.
It cannot
Yes.
be, even if I were to take that guy's perspective and say, well, there's a lot of authority delegated, but there must be boundaries on that. That is to say, if the president got elected and said, hey, thanks guys, really appreciate your vote. Now, I'm just going to go in the basement and play Xbox, and my friend Tom over there, he's the delegated president now. I know you didn't vote for him. I know you have no idea who the hell he is, but yeah, I'm just like, is presidential power transferable in that way?
No.
It can't be. That doesn't make any sense. And so there have to be boundaries on this. We have to figure out what those boundaries are. And I'm glad you mentioned some of that constitutional clarity, and maybe I'll have to read a little bit more about that, because one question that comes up on the stream in emails or, however else we have audience interaction is, if you could do one constitutional amendment, what would it be? And there are a lot of good nominations. But one thing I would like to consider is some clearer rules or language about delegating power among the branches. Congress does this all the time. War-making power, they delegate effectively their law-making power to the executive agencies in the form of rules and regulations, although that's been curtailed by the Supreme Court recently. But I'd like to see an amendment that just says the constitutional duties and roles of the branches are reserved for those roles or for those branches, period. You can't just delegate to another branch to do a thing for you, or just sub in somebody else who wasn't elected to the office in the way the Constitution requires, or in the case of Supreme Court justices, their appointment and their Senate confirmation. Anyway, you got any other thoughts on Pardongate before we move on?
Not at the moment. I mean, it'll be an interesting one to watch as things unfold, if anything unfolds. I mean, in order for anything to go from here on out, Pam Bondi would have to actually do something. So
they've been doing stuff lately. I don't know if it's Pam personally, but they got some prosecutions in the works.
Okay.
Why am I the one coping on behalf of Pam Bondi now? This doesn't make any sense. All right. Regrettably, I have some updates in
government shutdown.
I think maybe we're nearing the end. You tell me if you... Oh, bummer. The reason I say that is because even a lot of the Democrat base has had enough, and we're approaching the Democrat doomsday of November 1st. That's Saturday. And then people will be on the other side of Democrat doomsday, and they'll see it's not actually that doomsday-y. And this has all been a bunch of political gamesmanship and nonsense.
I don't know, though, because I don't know that any Democrat in office actually listens to their constituents. So
yeah, maybe. But they might listen to...
people say.
Tell me if you think they care about this constituency, because I think this is very interesting. The largest federal workers union has turned on Schumer, or at least said, okay, this is a bunch of crap. Cut this out. I'm not sure they've abandoned the Democrat Party in totality, of course.
Yeah, they're going to stop funding them? Are they going to stop donating?
Well, maybe. On Monday, the American Federation of Government Employees, again, the largest union of federal workers, called for Congress to pass a short-term spending bill to fund the government to continue negotiations after that. In other words, shut up, Chuck Schumer, and vote on the clean continuing resolution that Republicans already passed weeks ago, and then you can worry about your healthcare concerns and all the other stuff after that. Said the AFGE president, both parties have made their point, and still there is no clear end in sight. It's time to pass a clean continuing resolution and end this shutdown today. No half measures, no gamesmanship. Now, you mentioned the funding. Just how aligned is this labor union with the Democrat Party? Well, this reporting says 100% of their political donations in 2024 were to Democrats. I looked into it. I'm not sure where they're getting 100%, but with rounding, it's 100%. What I saw was more like 95% if you care about technicals. But the union is also suing the Trump administration currently to fight back against the mass layoffs that are happening under Russ Vought and company. So this is not, this is effectively a Democrat Party organization that is calling on Schumer and saying, enough with the crap. Let's get this, government back in business, and then you worry about the stuff that you care about after that. Do you think that's going to matter to Chuck Schumer?
I don't think it's news that a union is complaining. So I mean, that's kind of what they're built to do. So,
fair enough.
I just don't. Given what the Democrat strategy appears to be, I don't think they actually care about any of these outside voices. They're all in on this war of attrition.
Well, Chris Coons, the senator from Connecticut, had some commentary to that effect. Headline saying the quiet part out loud. But when they say stuff,
he's not the only one. Multiple Democrats have used the word leverage now.
Well, it's an interesting word choice, because when this all started, I predicted it was going to be over soon and Democrats were going to cave because they have no leverage. Exactly that. Now, I was wrong about it being over soon. I still think Democrats may cave. Maybe I'll be wrong about that too. But I didn't understand at the start of the shutdown what Democrats think their leverage is, because they have no leverage in the Senate other than they're in the minority and can exercise their filibuster power, which clearly they did. But they have even less power in the House, where they're in a slim minority. And of course, they don't have the White House. So what is their leverage? Well, you got Chris Coons and other Democrats saying our leverage is the suffering of the American people, or what they think and they insist is great suffering. And maybe some are. I'm not saying if that's you out there who's having a hard time because of the shutdown that doesn't matter. I'm just saying I don't think that Americans are suffering on the scale that they go on TV and say they are. But Chris Coons was on C-SPAN, the Crossfire show on C-SPAN, with Republican Senator James Lankford. And the clip is going viral because Coons said, at least implicitly, the American people themselves are Democrat Party leverage. If we inflict enough suffering on people, then maybe we get our way politically. The clip of this exchange that is circulating on X is only 9 seconds long. And anytime I see a clip that's only 9 seconds long, I always think, what did they cut out? Now, the truth in this case is
context.
I just wanted to see it in more full context, so I went to the C-SPAN show and grabbed it. Now, it doesn't change the meaning much, but I'll play it with a little bit more that's a little bit more than what's circulating right now. And the main point stands, though. Coons says, this is a very unpleasant tool for us to use, but this is how Democrats exert their political will.
This is principally a fight over health care and trying to prevent what's going to happen on November 1, which is millions of Americans get notices that their health insurance is going to double in cost. That'll impact all Americans. We're going to see emergency room wait times go up, total health coverage go down. President Trump ran for president on lowering costs and making America healthy again. He's actually doing the opposite. And the consequences of the so-called big, beautiful bill in terms of throwing millions of Americans off of health care in the coming years is something that Democrats consider a crisis. Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House. Frankly, this is our only moment of leverage. And although a very unpleasant tool to use, it's gotten us focused on what we have to do to change direction on health care.
Now, the accusation on X is that he was talking about SNAP benefits expiring, food stamps, food assistance expiring. In context, it's pretty clear to me he was talking about healthcare and not food assistance. But the broader point is absolutely correct. He thinks that inflicting suffering on people intentionally is a quote unquote unpleasant tool that is necessary to achieve Democrat Party ends. That point, of course, stands. And if anybody knows about unpleasant moments in politics or unpleasant things that have to be endured in politics, it would be Chris Coons, who, of course, submitted his own daughter as a sacrifice, a sniffing sacrifice to Joe Biden.
That was 4 days ago, 5 days ago.
If anything says unpleasant tool in politics.
God.
Chris Coons knows all about what an unpleasant business politics really is. But before we move on, what's your shutdown prediction? You think this is just going to keep going? I think that maybe we're nearing an end to it because I think that pressure on Democrats is going to ramp up, but maybe you don't think so?
I think the pressure will ramp up on. I think it will ramp up on both sides once the consequences actually start coming around within the next couple weeks. I think it'd be hard to see this going 2 more weeks, especially like once the videos start hitting, Instagram of people holding up their notices of that they're either getting dropped from their health insurance or their health insurance just doubled or tripled. I think it's going to put pressure all across the board, but I think it puts more pressure on the Democrats because the Republicans keep putting the vote up. They just did it again. It's been 14 votes on this.
I mentioned frequently that I like lurking left-wing comment sections to see what they're saying. I never engage. I don't troll. I just lurk and read what they're saying. It always amazes me how we live in 2 separate worlds. I can't tell you how many times I've seen some iteration of someone trying to break that echo chamber by saying, you could just join the Republicans and vote for the clean CR. And there's a reply that says, what are you talking about? There have been 0 votes in the Senate. Look it up. What? There have been over a dozen votes in the Senate. And you guys say no every time. And then if someone grants the premise, it's usually like, well, it's not clean. It's a Republican partisan bill, even though it's just a continuation at status quo. But I guess since the status quo,
what is the unclean? Point to the unclean part. Like I've heard this too, where the criticism of the use of the word clean. Like, fine, I'll drop the word clean if that's your problem. I don't think you can articulate what's unclean about it.
I think what they mean is that it originates with the big beautiful bill. The prior budget bill, I think, is what they're referring to. Like, because that was viewed as Republican partisan politics, even though that's the nature of being in the majority in Congress and having
it was already passed.
Yeah, but I guess what they're saying is the status quo is partisan. I think is the argument. That's why it's not clean, is because the status quo was not clean.
Sure, but that doesn't. I mean, it's still bipartisan in the fact that. Both sides weighed in on the previous budget. It's not like it was a Republican slam everything that they want and the Democrats got no say over anything in the previous budget. So the previous budget was bipartisan. So just continuing that resolution is, by definition, bipartisan. And if you don't like it, well, elections have consequences.
Yeah, and you have all the time in the world to negotiate a better budget bill. After you get, I personally don't give a rat's ass if they open the government again. But if you're the sort of person who does, there's a very easy path to do that. Anyway, I want to talk the layoffs at Amazon because we've had some really mixed economic news lately. Stock market is setting records almost daily right now. Today we got news of another Fed rate cut. We're also seeing major layoffs lately, though. You got Salesforce, UPS, Amazon now cutting tens of thousands of jobs combined. And the thing about these job cuts is they are very often citing AI and machine learning. Now, sometimes that means either workers are no longer needed because their jobs can be done by robots. Sometimes that means that the company is making decisions about how best to use their money. We don't think that this particular group of workers is extremely productive relative to what we'd get if we put that money into developing AI and machine learning. And so for Amazon, the cut is about 14,000 corporate jobs. That's about 4% of the Amazon workforce. Amazon says they're just reducing bureaucracy. They're removing layers. They're shifting resources to invest in their biggest bets and what matters most to customers. That's from their human resources executive. But what are we watching here? And I'm conflicted about this, so I'll be curious about your thoughts. Optimistically, moves toward efficiency are better for the company, better for the consumer, as in best product, fastest delivery, lowest possible price. And bloat in the corporate world is in ways just as bad as bloat in the government, although the government compels us to support the bloat by force, which is the difference. But it's also bad in terms of a business's efficiency. It siphons off money. It makes the business operate less efficiently. Now, optimistically, if I'm the worker, the hope here is that this is a shift in jobs. This is not a loss in jobs. Everyone's going to move to something else. We're going to be more productive with AI. We're just going to have different jobs that maximize that productivity. Pessimistically, of course, these are people whose jobs are now going to robots. And are any of us safe, and are our jobs safe in the robot future? Not just our jobs, actually, but are we safe when the robots have all of our information? They know where we live. They know what we buy. They probably know where we are every second of the day. And when they turn into Terminators, are they going to spare us? That's the question. So what do you think the proper response to these pieces of news is? Should we be optimistic about this sort of thing? Should we be pessimistic? How am I supposed to interpret this?
I mean, as it is with most automation, it's typically their optimism or apathy. Like, you don't have to react to this at all. I mean, the myth of the job-killing robot, like, this has been around since, like, what, the 1960s, 1970s, and it's never been true. It's never happened. Nearly every industry that has undertaken significant steps in automation has increased its workforce. So, I mean, the big famous example is ATMs. So there was a big scare when the ATMs started rolling out, and there was even some banks that were fundamentally opposed. And they said, we'll never have ATMs because the conception was that it was going to put bank tellers out of business. Well, the almost instant impact was an increased number of transactions at the bank, an increased number of accounts being opened, and a need for more tellers inside the bank. So, and it's not even necessarily that it doesn't even have to always ring true that company or that industry even is where the new jobs pop up. But somehow, some way, automation always ends up shifting those jobs to somewhere else and actually creating more jobs. Automation has created jobs and not destroy them. You can see that just in the fact that we have whole industries that were born out of some other industry automating something. And so
I just want to thank you for not saying ATM machine. That is much appreciated. I don't like, I'm all about efficiency. I don't like redundancy on this show. Okay. So the one thing I'm concerned about, and I take your points, and I don't have a great counterexample of, like, look, the robots stole all these jobs and they never came back. I hope that that's what this is leading to, is more productivity and people finding new jobs that are better and even more productive. The one thing that has me concerned, and I'm not saying this is all the robots' fault, but the labor force participation rate is not necessarily recovering. Throughout
overlay
COVID,
that with inflation. Inflation kills more jobs than automation does.
I'm sure. That's probably,
that's a hard fact. So.
Yeah. But to explain where we're at right now, throughout COVID, I would return to this figure when talking about employment, because unemployment only reflects people unemployed and actively looking for work. It doesn't factor unemployed people who are out of the workforce entirely. In contrast, the labor force participation rate, I think, is the number that you want to use when evaluating, well, are people participating economically or are they not? The measurement is just the percentage of adults who could be working, who are working, or the percentage of adults who are working. Let me back up. Now that I've butchered this, the percentage of adults who could be working, who are working, or are looking for work. That's the idea. So people who are totally out of the market are eliminated in this. The people who are totally out of the market are factored in. God, I've totally tied my brain up trying to make what I thought was an important point here. Anyway, that's the reason you want to choose labor force participation rate over the unemployment rate. You want to know about people who are out of the market entirely and are not looking to enter the market.
Yes.
So back in late 2000 and early 2001, labor force participation hit an all-time high. about 67%. So 2/3 of adults who could work were working. That declined to about 62% in 2015, 2016. It climbed back up to about 63% pre-COVID, and then it fell off during COVID, and it hasn't ever really recovered. We did nearly recover by November 2023, just under 63%. Now it's back on the decline ever since, and it's down at about 62% in the latest numbers from August. That's the lowest it's been since the late 1970s. Now, I don't want to just say that a lower labor force participation rate is automatically bad. Some people left the workforce during COVID for good reasons. They became stay-at-home parents, which might be necessary, useful. That might be beneficial, actually. So just because you're not participating in the economy doesn't mean that you are not necessarily participating in a productive society and doing important things and in raising a family and all that. It's not that it's always bad. I just think it's an indicator that things can be bad. The level of human productivity, according to this measure, or at least the level of people who could be producing and maybe aren't, that is as low as it's been since, for about 50 years. So I'm a little bit concerned by that. When I see mass layoffs with AI and machine learning as the reason, that's maybe a factor, but I think I take your point. Like maybe I'm connecting A and B that correlate, but there's no actual causation here. I just worry.
There's another important thing to take into consideration, and that is the rate of retirement of the boomers. That's starting to hit its real peak right now.
That's probably true. There's a lot of them, and there are fewer younger people. Yes. So. Okay, cool. You talk me down from the ledge a little bit because I just worry about the future where you own nothing and you're happy because the robots make the products, the robots deliver the products, the robots generate all the wealth, and you collect robot welfare. You are totally robot dependent. And I hope that's not where we're going. But the good news is when the robots take over, they're going to make a way better stream than this one.
Bingo.
So you have that to look forward to. Okay, couple of things. We're a little bit close to the top of the hour, so I'll have to kind of run through these maybe a little bit quickly because I want to get to our callers. Appreciate your patience. We'll be with you momentarily. But I mentioned Gavin Newsom. Now, Gavin Newsom, your governor in California.
Yeah, my guy. That's my guy.
He had something of a Hillary Clinton hot sauce moment this week. Now, if you don't remember the famous Hillary Clinton hot sauce moment, this was back during the 2016 campaign. And Hillary was on the Breakfast Club radio show, and she was asked by the hosts, what is an item that you carry daily? And she said, well, of course, hot sauce. And they laughed, and they said, you're going to get accused of pandering to black people, you know. Here was the moment.
What's something that you always carry with you?
Hot sauce.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you getting information right now? Hot sauce. Hot sauce in my bag, swag?
Hot sauce.
Really?
Yes.
Now listen, I just want you to know, people are going to see this and say, okay, she's pandering to black people again.
Okay. Is it working?
Yeah.
I don't think nothing's funny about it.
Is it working? No, it didn't work well enough. Apparently, she lost the campaign, of course. Or lost that election cycle. But Gavin Newsom just did something, effectively the same thing, almost 10 years later. So Gavin was on the All the Smoke podcast. Now, I'm not a great NBA mind, skulldugger, but I'm informed this is an NBA podcast. I've never heard of this show. Are you familiar with it?
Never heard of it.
It's got to be something of a big deal if Gavin Newsom is going to go on it. So Gavin Newsom goes on the All the Smoke NBA podcast, and he described growing up, trying to get better at basketball, and of course, struggling financially. So he ate Wonder Bread and mac and cheese.
You know, like the White Stack 5 story.
Come on. Kraft macaroni and cheese.
Yeah. Man, bro.
Yeah.
Are you talking about me?
Young YG.
YG, man.
Every day in the backyard, just bouncing the basketball, throwing the ball against the wall until the ball is just like fraying, man. And your arms
Entertaining
fall
yourself.
off. That's it, whole thing. So just, and then, you know, then this student that was shitty student is in the back with his head down, all of a sudden started throwing the baseball a little faster than everyone else. and started, make a few free throws because I was sitting there practicing 500 of them every damn night. And in high school, I look up in the stands, my dad's back up there.
Okay, dope.
And it's like, man, and then he's bringing his friends, and you're captain of the team, and you're like, gee, and it just saved me, and it got me into college.
I don't want to hear any more of these lies.
So maybe you don't know about Gavin Newsom's incredible basketball skills. Now, thanks to this assembled information from the Babylon Bee, I have been supplied a clip of Gavin Newsom's incredible basketball skills. Here he is apparently trying to take on a bunch of Chinese children in a pickup basketball game. Wait, all right, back up a little bit, yeah. I would never qualify as an NBA referee, but I think that was a charge. I think that Chinese kid was playing sound defense, and Gavin Newsom charged him there. Do you have basketball rule knowledge?
That was my take on it as well.
All right, I heard the whistle, so I don't know. I don't know who was called on that one. But some notes about Gavin's supposed upbringing of modesty, financial modesty. His dad was the lawyer for the billionaire Getty family. Gavin was named most stylish in his high school yearbook his senior year. So I guess he must have been. Hold on. Press the button accidentally. Sorry. So I guess he must have been very good at the thrift shop, assuming he, with the money he saved by buying Wonder Bread and mac and cheese, he was able to put toward his wardrobe at the thrift shop. Now, Gavin Newsom was featured in something called Children of the Rich, which was a San Francisco Chronicle story. And I'm not sure if the title is ironic or if it's serious, but it looks pretty serious. And I don't think these are guys of poverty he is featured with in his younger years there. But Gavin Newsom is demonstrating the skills necessary to do what he is certain to do next, which is run for president. If you want to run for president, you have to be an excellent liar. And, of course, he is, whatever skills he may lack in basketball, he has perfected his skills in that art. Though, of course, Hillary Clinton tried to pander to black people lies, and it didn't work out for her. So I don't know.
Well, so did Kamala. She had the weed smoking, listening to to Tupac.
Yeah, that's how you know that Kamala is not actually black. When people say that she's Indian and Jamaican and that doesn't count as black. The fact that she has to invent lies to pander to actual black people tells you everything you need to know. That and when she crashes a truck, I'll know that she's a real Indian then. It's only a matter of time. Anyway, okay. Lastly, speaking of lying commies, Zohran Mamdani, about to be your mayor of New York City. We talked about this on the Sunday show. Of course, Andrew Cuomo, his opponent in the upcoming election, called into a local radio show. They were talking about what would happen if Zohran Mamdani was mayor for 9/11 too. And the radio host said, well, yeah, he'd celebrate. And Andrew Cuomo laughed along. And this was a great moment in Islamophobia for Zohran Mamdani. So he went to the nearest mosque and he got in front of all of Gavin Newsom's friends. Those are all of Gavin Newsom's childhood friends behind him right there. They all loved the macaroni and cheese Wonder Bread sandwiches growing up. And he said, Muslims don't feel safe in this city. It's so terrible for the poor Muslims. In fact, my aunt she didn't ride the subway after 9/11 because she was so scared that people wouldn't like her hijab. And when we discussed this on Sunday, I'm ashamed and embarrassed to admit I didn't even consider the possibility that was totally fake. It's not like I believed him that he had this aunt who was cowering in fear before the evil hijab haters on the subway. But what I'm saying is like that the story was so fabricated that it wouldn't even line up. And that the lack of lining up has since come out. So this actually came out just before live on Sunday, but people did some digging and they looked up his aunt, and I guess he must only have one aunt, or how they narrow it down to this woman, I'm not exactly sure, but his aunt didn't even live in New York City before, during, or after 9/11. She was in Tanzania. It's also not clear that she even wears a hijab regularly, and she works on like gender equality issues, which makes you wonder, would she wear a hijab in that case? But that's all a misunderstanding, Zohran Mamdani says. Now, I wasn't talking about that aunt who lived in Tanzania. I was actually talking about my dad's cousin, and the fact that people care about whether this story is true or not somehow demonstrates my point, he said on Monday.
I was speaking about my aunt. I was speaking about Zerafui, my father's cousin, who sadly passed away a few years ago. And for the takeaway from my more than 10-minute address about Islamophobia in this race and in this city to be the question of my aunt tells you everything about Andrew Cuomo and his inability to reckon with a crisis of his own making.
I can't believe the takeaway from my story is that people care whether or not it's true. Why does it matter if the story is true or not? Now, I actually do agree with his point that the story tells us everything we need to know, in that it tells us he will make up nonsense and lie to your face in pursuit of his political goals. If it's useful to his campaign, the truth is secondary, of course. But
slander the very people he's trying to represent.
And his own family, in a way, to the extent that it's not true. Yeah. And of all the things that make Zohran Mamdani a potentially unique politician, this is probably not one of them, though. Like, how many politicians do you think make up bullshit stories about their family for political utility?
All of them.
Pretty much all of them, I would assume. Now, they might not do it in a way that says, "Isn't my city so hateful?" which was the point. It's very bizarre to run for leadership of a city by implying that the city is so hostile and intolerant of others. That's kind of what he's doing right now. So there is a smear associated with it. You're right. But as far as just making up bullshit for political ends, I don't know that he is that unique in that regard. Probably very normal.
Well, I mean, these New Yorkers are so intolerant of people like him that they're about to elect him mayor.
Yeah, there is that. They hate Muslims so much that they made one the Democrat Party nominee in that city. Okay, we got to get to calls.
The other thing I can say about this one real quick is, like, if he's questioning why this one piece is what got addressed, this was the part of his 10-minute speech that he clipped himself and put on social media.
Did he?
This was the part. This was the part
it?
that he was putting out there as the most important part, was that his aunt was afraid to wear her hijab on the subway after 9/11.
I heard the speech and
people put out.
Yeah, he clearly highlighted it. If it was not the main point of the story, I'm not sure why it was included. He thought it was a way to highlight Islamophobia, but in his explanation, it's one of the worst examples he can come up with. So if it was not strictly relevant, I'm not sure why it was included or highlighted in the way that it was. You're right. But I didn't know that he had featured it in that way. That's hilarious. Okay. Let's get to our calls. Let's bring Turles in here. Let me unmute myself. Turles, are you there? Turles?
Hello there, gentlemen.
There we go. What's on your mind?
Yeah, it always takes a second. Sorry about that. Congrats on the face reveal there, Skulldugger.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, it seemed appropriate that you guys were talking about Mamdani just now. The one book that I went over again this last week was Animal Farm, actually. Never gets old. So
I'm generally familiar, but I don't think I've actually read it. I know I watched the movie in school.
Okay. Well,
but I don't think I've read it. Yeah.
How about you, Skull? Have you read the book?
I read it in high school, which was a very long time ago. So it's time for a refresh on that one.
Yeah, it is. And whether you've read it before or you never have, it's not long. You can listen to the audiobook in like 2 hours. It's one of those evergreens, no doubt about it. Never gets old. One of the interesting aspects of the story, and there are a lot, is how do you end up in trouble? Is kind of one of the questions that the book explores. How do you end up in a situation where preventable hardships or disasters occur? And like the number one problem for the characters of Animal Farm is really just it's not the only problem, but the number one problem is like forgetfulness, lack of mental acuity, and that this this is what ends up dooming the characters to sort of forget old lessons. Or one of the more prominent aspects of the story is how when the revolutionaries take over the farm, they establish sort of a new society, and they have the 7 commandments for animals and all of that. But most of the animals can't read very well, if at all. And but the pigs are very literate. And so over time they keep changing the commandments, and they adjust things, and they gaslight the others and tell them that what they think they remember, they actually don't. It didn't really happen that way. One of their old comrades, because there are 2 like sort of prominent pig figures. There's Napoleon and Snowball. Napoleon is sort of the Stalin-esque character. Snowball is kind of this technocrat, an ideologue. He's run out of town, as it were. And so he had this whole idea. Snowball, to show you what kind of technocrat he was, he even had this idea of like educating wild animals and civilizing them, which of course was a totally failed experiment. Which I think, that's a small part of the book, but I think it's very interesting, right? In light of a lot of the things that happen today. So
yeah, I will always, I just remember the quote, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. And that's the way it always seems to work out. But your point on learning lessons, now you're talking about like actually gaslighting and manipulating people to move away from lessons of the past, or to pretend that they didn't learn those lessons. One thing that frustrates me about human psychology, and I don't remember if this plays into Animal Farm or not, you could tell me, is there's just something about the fact that we have to learn our lessons the hard way. That is to say, we're going to have people in New York City, for example, eager to vote for the exact sort of philosophy that has killed so many, that has caused so much suffering. For some reason, we have to.
Century of failure.
For some reason, we have to experience it ourselves to learn the lesson. We can't look at the historical record and learn the lesson the easy way. I don't know if that's a theme of Animal Farm or not, but it's frustrating to me that there's something about us, human nature. We have to experience it. We have to learn it the hard way. I don't know why. I wish that wasn't the way it is, but it seems to be so.
In a way, Animal Farm is actually more pessimistic in that it would suggest, Orwell kind of just said this, right? He's like, what's my view of history? It's a boot stamping on the human face forever, or something like that.
Yeah.
The reason that he was so pessimistic is because, although you could sort of temporarily learn lessons, if you learn them at all the hard way, you'll eventually forget, and then just this is kind of when you reach the culmination at the very end of the book, the pigs have essentially become human. They've become just like the old masters that were overthrown. And this sort of, implies the cyclical nature of it all, that, you may temporarily sort of think, okay, things are bad. We're going to do whatever we have to do to change up the system and make it better. But you'll forget eventually, or your children will, or your grandchildren, you'll forget those lessons before too long, and you'll just end up right back where you were. And I think that's even more an even bigger danger now, because of the way technology is. It's keeping everybody's attention span really limited. And this is why, honestly, this is why I go around recommending books every week, because I feel like we're just in terms of how our minds work, in terms of our mental capacity. I mean, how many things on a regular basis do we forget in the news? That good example, the Irina Zarutska case happened not too long ago, and over the past few weeks, there have been frequent posts from people saying, "We won't forget you." The reason that they feel they have to do that, of course, is because they realize we're living in a very forgetful age.
I think part of it, and it's not, I don't want to speak uniquely to the Zarutska case, but when you focus on day-to-day news and you don't get into the deeper principles, philosophy behind it, that kind of is the consequence, because when we're not thinking about the more fundamental truth through which we view or frame these news stories, and we're just thinking about the facts specific to that case, of course, the news cycle moves on, and that case is old and becomes lost in our minds. We don't remember it anymore.
And I think that
so,
really explains Mamdani. That it's like we've seen what this philosophy brings about. Okay, we know it's not really like anything mysterious about it. And so that those of us who actually kind of haven't forgotten are left scratching our heads thinking, how can you guys fall for this?
Well, I wonder if this will be the time that true communism will actually be tried. We'll find out. Anyway, I got to let you go, but thank you for the call. Appreciate it.
Sure thing. See ya.
Do you have any thoughts on Animal Farm or communist quote unquote wisdom?
Well, communist wisdom is an oxymoron. So.
Well, do you look forward to the Mamdani show at all? There's kind of two competing perspectives. One is lamenting the loss of our country's biggest city. The other is saying like, nope, if people forgot this lesson, they need to learn it. So I'm all about it.
I have a rotten reason for looking forward to it. It makes me feel really bad saying this, but being a Californian, misery loves company, man.
You guys are going to suck worse than us. Can't
wait to see if New York actually manages to create a worse situation than what we have around here. So
let's talk to Fuen. Fuen, are you there?
Yeah. Hello there.
What's on your mind?
Hello.
A note from Tim is just that the third caller, he's having trouble getting him through. So when you pull him in, if you can't hear him, it's not just y'all.
Okay. Thanks for the production update. What do you got for us?
Happy to apply the duct tape.
Thank you.
Nothing major. I guess a few little things though. I saw Matt Palumbo was on Orrin McIntyre's show. So I think, hey, as a part-time co-host, it would be great if he could get a connection with you going for you to have Orrin on.
I think he follows me on X. I'm generally familiar with who he is, but I don't know a lot about him. So what do you appreciate about him?
Well, so actually someone else who followed the previous iteration of the show, he uses the pseudonym Dave Green or the Distributist. He has these live streams that are very rambly. He's got gems of wisdom. They're so great, but he is not concise. And Orrin is extremely concise and really started watching Dave and really boils a lot of things down. And it's kind of like in the school of elite theory. I mean, he would be pretty central in dissident right space, which is kind of grown up and more mature alt-right, kind of after the fallout of that, the people who were actually serious about some kind of political reform just are looking to older thinkers. And, Orrin has on Paul Gottfried, and they're talking about ideas that was popular among paleoconservatives and kind of previously got people like Pat Buchanan and Paul Gottfried and these guys booted out of the polite company of National Review and the new conservative movement, not necessarily just neocons, but I think he does a good job of offering what is the right-wing perspective that's not just we're the Republicans and we're meant to lose all the time.
Perfectly timed. Look at that. Congratulations. You mentioned the term paleoconservative, and in one of the few hit pieces I've ever received in my life, that's how I was characterized. And I thought, I don't even know what the hell that means. So can you please give me a definition for paleoconservative?
I mean, I actually don't know how, I don't think it's I don't think it's something that they necessarily called themselves. It's just paleo is old. So it's essentially the old right. There was kind of people like Howard Taft and like all of the it's like the ratchet only goes one direction, and things are always getting more progressive. Never like there are never wins that are clawed back. So it's like Dave has a great video about this where he like maps Ben Shapiro and shows how far to the left Ben Shapiro actually is of like former U.S. presidents. And yeah, there's kind of like these conflicting groups, and Paul Gottfried, he's been around for a long time, and he has an interview. I think this is one of his Oren interviews. He kind of talks about the different groups among the Republicans or the conservatives and like who are they? And there were these like old school rightists, and then there were new rightists that really took off with like National Review, and these are people like William F. Buckley. And then they did a lot of like cleansing of the party, where people who seem too bigoted, anyone who is like a bunch of the guys got kicked out for being like anti-Semitic and stuff like this, or being like isolationists, and a lot of people who were extremely popular kind of end up being slandered as like Nazi sympathizers, like Charles Lindbergh or like Father Coughlin, and like some of the old figures in the American right-wing movements are just like totally off limits in polite conservative circles.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'll take a look. Without getting into too much detail, I know Matt has been trying to help me network a little bit, so that's one thing I would like to do, and I'm terrible at it. It's not something I'm good at or like to spend a lot of time doing. So I'll certainly keep that name in mind and see if we can work something up.
Yeah, and I don't want to suggest too much, but maybe a topic. I mean, he went through the same pipeline I think a ton of people who ended up in dissident right spheres went through, which is like libertarian, and then realize that if you don't want to fight to win, like you're always going to lose.
Well, I still try to hang on to some sort of libertarian hope, but I'm sure you guys will beat it out of me eventually.
Yeah, I know it's been a minute. I just want to mention there's like 3 other things quickly, and it's just
it'll have to be quick. But yeah, if you got 3 bullet points, sure.
Keep having Sean on. AJW is going to be an asset once Mamdani wins. It's going to be great to keep up with him.
That's true. He can be my correspondent. Yeah.
Yep. I second the recommendation of The Chosen. It's a great show. I don't know if the Matthew from last week like isn't a fan because it's comes across a little Catholic, but it's actually made by Mormons. And then just a reminder about Animal Farm. George Orwell is a socialist, and like the thing he's warning about is about like once the revolution starts and the Spanish Civil War, like the communists stabbed all the other socialists in the back. So it's just an interesting context to keep in mind when thinking about Animal Farm. It's not even that he's saying opposing communism. It's like we socialists got murdered en masse by communists who infiltrated our organization.
Nobody's ever communist enough in the end. All right. Well, thank you for the call. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You have any thoughts on that, Mr. Skulldugger?
No, I think he walked through that beautifully.
All right. Well, let's try our last call here. I know we had some potential tech problems, but Queso is a new caller. Queso, are you there?
Yes. How y'all doing today?
There we go. Loud and clear. What's on your mind?
I guess I called once before, and I think that especially with how things are going now, or how things are probably going to go once the executive goes back to the left, people who are definitely on the right need to start taking their online data very seriously, and it's measures to protect their privacy, because we know they're going to go on the attack. So I just want to call to kind of reemphasize taking those privacy steps to make sure that you're doing the best to keep your data out of the wrong hands, because they're going to go back on the attack and take their own revenge tour, so to speak, as well.
So what are the steps that your average person should take to do that?
Oh yeah, great question. One thing you already do is change from SMS or text messages to like things like Signal or Session or Simplex. So take all your text away, because all that data and your cell data can be accessed by law enforcement without a warrant. That started back in the 1990s. If you're going to use like your YouTube stuff, just use that in the Chrome browser. Keep YouTube in its own browser, so you don't have the cross-device contamination or like cookie tracking and stuff in other browsers. One thing you can also do is remove like your sensitive like email communications from Google as well. So Google's the kind of through line, because so many companies use or are or are sold Google's data. And so if you take stuff away from the hands of Google, that's easy thing people can use to kind of better protect their data. So take away your banking data from Google, your actual political beliefs, take that away from Google. So that might mean having to leave some of your right-wing channels on YouTube and unsubscribing and following them on other platforms like Rumble.
I was going to
So
say.
How dare you?
I thought go to the other platforms. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Okay, when you say don't give your banking data and other important data to Google, does that mean how do I operate in the digital world without doing that? What does that mean in practical terms? Don't log into your bank account in Google Chrome or something, or what exactly do you mean?
Yeah, that too. And also, some people like to have their bank statements like sent to their Gmail account. So just have it sent to a different email account, because of course that means that you're giving that data straight to Google, which is scanning that and training their AI bot. So just take that data away from Google. It's kind of the easiest thing people can do.
Who, real quick before we finish up, if someone wants a more private email provider in that way, what would you recommend?
Yeah, Proton's pretty good. So is Tuta. Tuta is less polished than Proton. Proton has a lot of suite options, but Tuta, Proton are pretty good because self-hosting is pretty complicated. So for people who want to just migrate stuff, I would say Proton, because it gives you a more kind of Google-esque feel. But Tuta is actually more private than Proton by default. So Tuta and Proton Mail are better email options.
All right. Well, thank you for the thoughts. I appreciate that. And thanks for calling in. Have a good night.
You as well.
Good night.
Are you a online privacy-minded guy, Mr. Skulldugger?
Yes and no. Like I'm probably not as much as I should be, but it is something that I've kind of come around to in the last couple of years. So,
well, good. Definitely tips I should follow. And I can't tell you much about online security because I got all my Discord stuff taken by the feds. So I don't know. I use Signal. Hopefully they can't get in there. That's about. I don't have much better than that. Anyway, okay, we need to move into emails and voicemails. And before we do, I'm going to give everybody a quick reminder. First of all, thank you to our callers. Appreciate you guys calling in live. But if you'd like to send an email or a voicemail at your convenience for consideration on the show, go ahead and head on over to the contact page on my website, mattchristiansenmedia.com/contact. And you can participate in the show that way. Now, before we get into the voicemails that I have this evening, I have to address the sign tapping topic of the last few weeks.
Don't make me tap the sign.
That, of course, being the purpose of marriage. Now, for now, I've made the decision to retire the topic. That doesn't mean that I'm never going to return to it, though. But I think at this point, I've made myself clear. I think everybody who's participated in the discussion has made themselves clear. My position after this discussion, although I would grant that it's been refined a little bit in terms of children being the organizing principle of marriage, the fundamental purpose of marriage, we had that qualified a little bit to raising them well. Our friend Mark, who sits shotgun as well, said child rearing, perhaps. But my general view remains unchanged. That is to say, that the defining feature of the male-female relationship, the male-female union, is the capacity to produce children. Marriage exists as an institution to uphold the responsibilities and obligations that are owed to those children. And I don't think saying that children are that organizing principle of marriage is at odds with God's design and intent. I know we've had a lot of discussion on that topic. I think it is God's design and intent. And so I think we're actually making a lot of the same points, perhaps framed a little bit differently or phrased a little bit differently. But I'm going to leave the topic there for now. If I'm presented with a new argument that we haven't addressed yet, I'm happy to come back to it. So don't interpret what I'm saying as like, you're banned from sending an email or leaving a voicemail or making a call on it. I just want people to know that for now, I'm kind of setting it aside, and we'll return to it if there's a new concept, new argument, new thought introduced, or maybe we just we'll like to reminisce about the great sign tapping of 2025, and we'll come back to it in 2026.
Before you retire it, can I drop my perspective on it real quick?
Don't make me tap the sign.
What do you got?
All right. I'm kind of aligned with you on this one. So my view of it, and this is just...
You can talk for a half hour now. Go ahead.
across all of society and sort of like the history of mankind, the base unit for society is the family. So what builds a society is family. If you don't have family units, you won't have a society. Your society will break down. So the basic building block of society are stable, functional families. And the way you build a stable, functional family is through marriage. And so the vehicle of building a stable, functional family is marriage. Marriage builds the family. Marriage builds the family by producing children.
And not to credit or discredit your argument, but I want people to be clear that you come at this from a Christian perspective. Fair to say.
Yeah, so that works in both the Christian perspective and the non-Christian perspective. Both versions of society, whether you're talking about a Judeo-Christian Western society, which is definitely built on the biblical model of family, but even if you extract from that some of the ancient historical civilizations, they didn't start having stable civilizations and stable cities until they normalized the concept of family, until they normalize households. It is households that builds cities.
Yeah, and again, I'll emphasize, I don't think that's a dunk on the people who are trying to disagree. I'm not saying you're trying to dunk. I'm emphasizing that I'm not trying to either. I think that these things are essentially the same thing. That is to say, once society became clearer about God's intent and design, guess what? Society prospered. By following those rules and recognize them, you do better. So, yeah, I think we're in agreement there. And I don't even have to tap the sign. Thank you for that. Let's check in on a few voicemails. First one here's a little bit long, but I'm going to play it anyway because I think the insight is useful. This is almost a 2-minute voicemail about Indian truckers at a North Dakota truck stop.
Wanted to call and give my 2 cents about the Indian trucker situation. I know you were asking a couple people about their experiences with Indian truckers, and I work in a business that's attached to a truck stop in the largest city in North Dakota, so like smack dab middle of the country basically. And it's probably more than 50% of truckers. What you got really is you got fat old white guys who've been doing it for way too long, and Indian dudes. That's most of it. There's some like inner city black guys now that are doing it, and they're great because they're like super talkative and they love swapping stories. The Indians though, they communicate with grunts. They know a few words and then just if you're ever in a truck stop in a truck stop bathroom and you wonder why there's paper towels in the urinals, it's because the Indians use that to wipe their penis off and then they throw it in the urinal. Sorry,
that's disgusting.
But, that's literally what's happening. The story you've heard, not understatements whatsoever. It's actually worse than you think. If you take the grossest story about bathroom behavior you've heard about Indians and turn it up, like it's definitely worse than that. So yeah, it's all true. It's probably worse, and it's probably more than 50%. To be frank. Also, real quick, the Luigi Mangione being beat up by Thai boys, definitely a meme. Dude was joking. He fell down a flight of stairs or fell out of a tree. You know, he's a young guy backpacking in a foreign country. He got a normal injury and then told his buddies that he got beat up by lady boys as a joke. That's obvious. So, all right, take it easy.
Well, thank you for the update from North Dakota. And if the numbers are that high in North Dakota, you know it's completely insane in California, where you are, Skulldugger.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Now, and it also is.
And I apologize on behalf of my state for exporting this because apparently we are where the problem starts. So.
I'm glad to know that I have some reference or explanation now for why public bathrooms are so disgusting too. I guess truck stops are probably on another level, but you ever get into a public bathroom and you just wonder logistically how? And there's that famous meme of the guy like propped up on the wall, peeing and pooping horizontally everywhere. I was like, that guy must really exist, but maybe he's an Indian at the North Dakota truck stop. Maybe
he's an Indian trucker, and that's how he gets around to all of the different bathrooms to trash
Now,
every single one of them.
For the caller, as far as Luigi and the Thai lady boys, you're probably right. And I probably should have entertained that theory more on Sunday. That is to say, it's just a joke. There's nothing more to it than that. But I want to maintain the theory that Luigi Mangione got a fraudulent blowy, and that's what led to his downfall and his insanity. We'll see if that plays out. Thank you for the call.
He's actually a victim.
Yeah, well, if his story's true and it's not a joke, then yes, he should. His attacker should be prosecuted. But that's a matter of Thai justice at this point. All right, next voicemail.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for taking my call. I'm a first-time caller, and I just wanted to share my thoughts about left-wing criminals defacing artworks and monuments. Obviously, we've seen a lot of statues torn down over the years, and while they lied and said they'd be put in museums, what they did with the Stonewall Jackson statue, twisting it into a monstrous mutant, has just made my blood boil. They have to be stopped. We're not protecting our history. All these great men who actually had an impact on the world, who stood for something, and the legacy they left in our hands to learn from and preserve. And then 150 years later, you have a bunch of do-nothing goblins who tear them down or throw soup on paintings. I don't care about any politician unless they run on harsher penalties for these vandals. They should get life in prison. They failed the test on whether they can be trusted in society.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
There is no monument that declares any person perfect, and the premise that there is has always been wrong. Like imperfection is human nature. I don't think any monument has ever suggested, look at that guy. History's perfect man, no flaws about him at all. And I'll take your point on the call. Pretty clear now, looking back at the last decade or so of tearing down a lot of these monuments and erasing history, that a contextual historical understanding and placing these things in museums, that was never the point. Like everything else with these commies, it was about exercising power in pursuit of destruction. They do it in pretty much all contexts. This was just one of them. And I've talked about it many times before, but one thing that I find incredibly irritating, and this is one manifestation of this view, is looking back at historical figures or just history in general and thinking, wow, I'm the smartest, wisest, most morally superior person ever to exist in the history of this planet. That is to say, everybody before me was backward, confused, morally upside down, terrible people. I have reached the height of intellect and moral fortitude, even though I haven't really built anything and have nothing to show for myself and really have no accomplishments at all. It's really bizarre that I'm so talented and don't have much to show for it. But we should look at history with the same perspective that we look at everything else, and that is to say, with humility, to try to lower ourselves in importance and think critically, would I really have been that different if I existed in that time? What is it about that time that caused people to behave in this way or caused people to think this thing, even if they were wrong? It's not as though all of history is always correct. But if you start operating with the assumption that maybe the combined human wisdom of history knew a little bit something more than you as an individual does now, that sort of humility is beneficial just from a critical thinking perspective and being a smarter person. So I wish we could return to that, but easier said than done. Every generation, I guess, has to feel like they matter or like they've changed the world or like they've done something. Unfortunately, we have decided that there's something to be celebrated in destruction in that way rather than building new amazing things. It always has to be tearing down. And of course, the statues are a victim of that.
Absolutely. And to what the caller said, like the notion that they were just going to be removed to then be cared for in some curated museum was always a lie. And actually, I got tricked. I actually fell for that one. I'll be completely honest. I was actually at one point I was of the mind that, especially as it pertains to certain Civil War monuments that are in the South, like if you're a black person in the South, I can understand the effect that it may have on you having to walk by this statue, sort of commemorating somebody that is not a positive impact for people like you.
Stop being such a pussy.
But I mean, at this point, if the alternative is we destroy that history, I think it's more important to preserve the history rather than anyone's feelings about it.
Do you know what the caller is referencing with the Stonewall Jackson statue? I don't know exactly what happened with that one.
I mean, there were so many of them. It's hard to keep any of them it's straight. I know there was one that it was like pushed over and it like fell on its own head, and it like
Saddam Hussein style.
Yeah,
the
basically.
toppling
And
of
it,
that
like,
statue.
Well, because that one was the one that I'm thinking of. It was bronze, I believe. So it wasn't like super hard metal, and it's hollow. So once it hit, the impact of its own weight basically just caused it to collapse.
It's okay that you fell for it too. You know what I fell for? Change the name of the Washington Redskins. I fell for that one. Now we have to go back. They're not the Commanders. We made a mistake. Bring back the Indian that was on the helmet was modeled after a real, I think it was Blackfeet, Montana Indian chief or a tribal member. I forget what his title was, but it was done to nobody wants to be the Washington Giant Pussies. You don't name your team after something you think is terrible or weak or awful. So I regret that. I wouldn't have done it. You know what? I keep wondering on the team change. We don't change any of the white people logos. You got the Vikings, you got the Fighting Irish, you got all those.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're going to change the Minnesota Vikings. Of course, I've been a fan my entire life, but and people ask what it will take for me to stop watching the NFL. And I know I should have stopped a long time ago. It's just kind of one day the Vikings will win the Super Bowl, and I just have to see it. Okay. It's just part of who I am. But I think the thing that'll make me quit is when they make the Viking black. And I know they're going to do it. That Viking logo will turn from white to black. I swear to God, it's going to happen. It's going to be like when they made Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and you could be like a black chick Viking running around like Norway in the game. Okay, and the black chick Nazis in various Call of Duty iterations. So yeah, once either they'll become the Minnesota George Floyds, or they'll just make the Viking black in complexion, and then I'm out. And people will say you're way too late, and I'll say I know.
Well,
but
what's interesting about the Native American removal of things is it starts to become even more insulting once we remove them from all of our logos, because like we already removed them from the land. Like my favorite one is the Land O'Lakes.
That one's terrible. Yeah, and they
literally just removed the Indian woman and kept the logo the exact same. It's just
there's Land O'Lakes butter in my fridge all the time, and she's not on there.
We moved her to a reservation. It's fine. You can calm down now.
Look, the lake is very nice. Nice tall trees. Not an Indian in sight. The butter's delicious too. But yeah. All right. Next voicemail here.
Hey there, Matt. Once again, Kaiser and Gilroy, long-time listener, second-time voicemail inbox dropper. So I have a couple questions for you and the super chatters and whoever's going to be joining you Wednesday night. First off, in your state, what is considered the Sodom and Gomorrah of your state? Mine is obviously San Francisco is the Sodom, and Los Angeles is the Gomorrah, so you can figure that part out. Second, what were some of after watching your Wednesday video today, what kind of tired NPC phrases from Antifa are kind of your favorite that don't like to hold a lot of weight, but now after 5 or 6 or 10 years later, make you want to chuckle and say, ha ha ha, look at those NPCs walking down the street. That's all I got. Thank you for your time, and never forget what LaDonna said. It's not against the law, ho, fuck you.
It's not against the law, ho, fuck you.
Thank you for the LaDonna shout out. Now, on the first question, and maybe you can help me with this, Skulldugger, I'm generally aware of Sodom and Gomorrah. They were wicked cities that were destroyed by God for their sinfulness. Is there a distinction between Sodom and Gomorrah, or are they kind of interchangeable? That's one thing I don't know.
I mean, anybody who makes the distinction is probably being a little pedantic. You can probably just go ahead and view them as twin cities that shared a lot of the same specific sins.
So in that framing, then let's say they're interchangeable. They're kind of 1 and 1A. One's not more wicked than the other or differently wicked than the other. The caller's from California, obviously. Do you agree with the assessment that San Francisco and Los Angeles are the most condemnable cities in the state, or is there some sort of underdog we're not considering?
You gotta at least throw a side eye at Sacramento.
Okay, just because it is a collection of all the state's scum and villainy.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that is where they all gather, isn't it?
The worst of the people are in Sacramento, although most of them come from San Francisco. So.
Yeah, maybe. Now, in Montana, it is Missoula #1, and it's not close. You remember our crazy transgender state legislator, Zoe Zephyr, but it's spelled Zooey, so I like to call him Zooey. He made national news a year or two ago. He got suspended from the legislature because when they were trying to pass a bill to ban transgender surgeries and hormone therapies, hormone interventions with children for gender ideology reasons, he said that everyone opposing it in the legislature or everyone supporting the ban had blood on their hands, which of course was very ironic considering he literally wants children's blood in pursuit of his gender delusions. So Missoula is an insane town that is just as California as any California place that you can name. And if there is, I said there's no close second. There really isn't. But if there was, or something that's closer than the others, it actually regrettably is Bozeman, where I live. And that's maybe a little bit different in nature. It's just all the coastal commies moving in here, and they're doing it in Missoula too. But the COVID era was nothing but coastal influx. People trying to escape all the insanity. They came in here. They brought in their coastal money, and they have just jacked the housing market to completely insane levels, not just with the demand. At some level, it's a market. Like if there's high demand, you're going to get high prices. That's just the way it works. But these people have never seen a tax increase, a property tax increase they won't vote for. They're also so stupid as to propose an idea. There's an idea on the potentially, or it's on the ballot, I think we'll vote on it, I think this coming week. But the geniuses think that to create affordable housing in Bozeman and Gallatin County, we should require developers, as a condition of getting their building permit, to commit to 1/3 of the properties that they build to being sold below market value. So we're just going to say that houses in Gallatin County and Bozeman they cost a $5 foot long, and suddenly we'll all get houses. It'll be amazing. Wow. As opposed to the reality where if you tell them they can't make money on building, they're just not going to build, which is what we're going to see. So Bozeman has embraced a lot of communistic nonsense. Hopefully it'll recover. It used to be, a red agricultural county. Now it's full of a bunch of coastal blue voters, and it votes reliably blue. So unfortunately, it deserves the Sodom or Gomorrah designation for this state. But hopefully we can turn it around. It's not overwhelmingly. I mean, it's something close to 50-50. So if hopefully people will wise up and realize that if you vote for things that increase the cost of living, these are the kind of dummy college kids that vote for increased property taxes to pay for their goodie bag and then are shocked. What? My landlord increased the rent? I don't understand. But they do it every time. And then they still blame the rich people. Of all the evil taxes, property taxes, I think, income taxes, probably just as awful. But the idea that people who come here and live here short-term, temporarily, these college kids, that they're going to come in and vote to increase taxes on property owners in this town and county and tell us what to do, and we have to fork over money because they say so. They have no skin in the game. They have no investment in this community. They are literally voting to steal in every sense of the word. And for some reason, we haven't fixed it in this state.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the issues that we run into in a lot of the places in California, because we just keep overcrowding all of our cities, is that you have a lot of cities where you have more renters than homeowners living within the city. So when it comes time to vote for these city measures that, grant this, that, and the other thing, and the only thing that it's going to do is increase property taxes. Well, a bunch of people who are renting are like, I don't pay property tax. Yeah, go ahead.
I want free stuff somehow.
Free stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, on the second question on the chance, if people didn't see, the caller's referencing the video I posted this morning about Portland police finally taking down that encampment outside of the Antifa or outside of the ICE building in Portland. And there was a lot of, Antifa chantery, if that's a word, going on. So what are the most cringe ones? Now I hate whose streets are streets. It's not just Antifa or Portland context. That's a common one. The reason I hate it is because they're literally not your streets. They're public property. So the guy driving down the street has every right to be there, and you actually do not have a legal right to occupy that street. But it's even more infuriating because it's coming from people who fundamentally don't believe in private property. You want a street? Go build your own street and chant about how you own the street. But that's not even something you believe in philosophically anyway. So that one irritates me. And then the worst one, just from a pure annoyance perspective, any variant of the hey, hey, ho, ho chant. Hey, hey, ho, ho, Donald Trump has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho, stuff I don't like has got to go. Just because it rhymes doesn't mean it's clever. You need a new rhyme. I can't imagine even if it was like in the street, hey, hey, ho, ho, corrupt government has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho, property tax has got to go. It's so cringe. Like, even if I agreed with it, it's so mindless and cringe that I can't believe people voluntarily participate in it. You got any other nominees? Cringe chants?
No, I don't commit those to memory.
Okay. Well, that's probably for the best.
In one ear, out the other. I don't care about these people.
My favorite moment from the Portland Antifa camp takedown, I don't know if you watched what I posted this morning or not, but there was the moment in there where they're taking it down and the guy's carrying the propane tank and says, oh, whoa, careful. I want to make sure George Soros gets his deposit back on this propane tank. I thought, that's actually really funny. This guy's like self-aware and he's making a joke about operating on behalf of Soros. But I have to know, as I was saying in the video, it's not unrealistic that Soros money is actually at work here. So, like, are you self-aware joking, or do you actually know a thing? How do you interpret his commentary on I'm protecting George Soros's assets?
Well, I mean, it is a joke, but the joke is on us at the end of the day. I mean, we're the ones who ultimately have to pay for the results of all these things. So.
Well, I got one more voicemail and then we'll move on to emails. This one just came in before live, and it's some kind of bit, some kind of gag, but here we go.
Hello, it's me, Mario. Matt and I once laid some pipe together. We marched against King Koopa and chanted, Free Luigi! He cooked me a pineapple pizza at 4:25 for 25 minutes. Wow! Then he creamed my peach and told me that marriage is for the procreation and facilitation of children. Mamma mia! Time to go!
What the f*** is this? What the f*** is this?
Thank you. I didn't know Mario was such a long-time listener. He has a lot of references in there that go a long way back.
So good. A lot of bits.
Now, I'm not Mario. The only I agree with a lot of the things you said. The only thing I want to clarify is 425, as in preheating an oven to 425 degrees and cooking the food for 25 minutes. 425. That is not appropriate for pizza. That is too hot and too long for pizza in almost all contexts. But it's perfect for potato products, tater tots, French fries, potato wedges, that kind of stuff. 425 on your pizza will give you a crispy pizza. And if you're like me, you got to have a doughy pizza. It's got to be soft. Just my preference. Anyway, do you have a pizza preference? Crust, cooking, doughy, crispy? What do you like?
So I like the undercarriage to be kind of crispy, but then the layer right above that to still be kind of like gooey and doughy.
The undercarriage. This pizza undercarriage is terrible. Send it back. All right, let's get into email questions, and we'll get to a super chat too. Appreciate the patience of the chatters. Thank you guys for supporting the show. We'll get to you to close. Thank you for your chats. Okay, let's pull up email questions here. First up is Orthodox Christian Andrew. Matt, do Nickelback and Creed deserve all the hate that they get? I found this question to be divisive. You know, I think divisive is a legitimate pronunciation, but people always hate on me for saying that. Anyway.
The pronunciation of that word is divisive.
Yeah, exactly. To me, if division is a proper pronunciation. Divisive is also a proper pronunciation. That's my... This will be the new sign tapping material right here. But it's as divisive as pineapple on pizza. Now, I have to plead a little bit of ignorance on this. I know that these bands are memes for their supposed terribleness. Truth is, I don't really listen, or I haven't listened to much of either. I kind of like Creed for reasons related to the aforementioned Minnesota Vikings. You know who loved Creed was former Vikings quarterback Kirk Cousins, and he would play Creed in the Vikings locker room. And I find, for whatever football criticism you have of Kirk Cousins, and there are many valid ones, I find him to be such a good, wholesome Christian man in a context of a lot of degeneracy in the NFL. Like, watch the Netflix special Quarterback with Kirk Cousins. I find him to be an incredibly likable guy and a guy with great values. So the fact that he likes Creed and plays it in the locker room makes me a little warm to Creed. But the one thing I'll say about Nickelback, people are out there, how did this guy make Creed more cringe? He brought up Kirk Cousins to defend Creed. Yeah. I'm almost as cringe as the hey, hey, ho, ho people. But I'm telling you the truth. The thing I'll say about Nickelback that I will always remember from about a decade ago is that their songs are very, very similar. Have you ever heard two Nickelback songs dubbed over each other, Skulldugger?
No.
Okay, so I remember that I pulled this because this is from 9-10 years ago. But Nickelback, two of their greatest hits, there's Someday and there's How You Remind Me. And if you don't know those songs, you'll probably recognize them when you hear them. Now, 9-10 years ago, someone just put them over each other and they're almost the same exact song. I can only play a little bit of it for copyright reasons, but this will give you a sense of how similar they actually are. Okay, it goes into the chorus. It's got the bridge. Look that up and listen to it. And it's hard. I have to have a little bit of eyebrow raising at Nickelback for that. I guess the counter is, hey, if it works, why reinvent the wheel? Keep pumping out the hits.
I mean, credit to Owen Benjamin. He had a great bit about Coldplay, and like all of their songs are the same song, just over and over.
What about Yellow? I've defended Yellow on this show and taken heat for that.
Yeah, that's included in his bit. So.
They probably are the same thing, yeah. Okay, so Creed is kind of cool for Kirk Cousins reasons. Nickelback is too repetitive. That's our conclusion here. Do you have any dispute with my characterizations?
No, I was actually a bit of a Creed fan back in the day, in the mid to late 90s, early 2000s, when they first came out. I loved their first album.
Have you ever gone to a Creed show?
No, I don't. I'm not a huge concert guy, so no.
Well, thank you to our emailer. That was from Orthodox Christian and Andrew, AJ. Hey, Matt, I've enjoyed hearing the theological debates as your new faith is being strengthened and formed. I'm sure to protect your family's privacy, you limit how much you share, but I'd love to hear if your wife is also on the same faith journey, if she was a Christian before you, and how much this has impacted your family as you now lead them in a faith-filled future. So you're right that I try to maintain a little bit of privacy here. My wife and I don't want the full force of the internet coming after her, so we try to shield that a little bit. But I can tell you that, yeah, we have chosen the path to follow Christ together. Church is a part of our lives, and it's going to be a part of our lives and our family going forward. And like me, she wasn't Christian when we met, and we've reached this decision together. And I think there are going to be things that we pursue together beyond just promoting it and allowing it to guide our family in the future. For instance, we'd like to get baptized together in the future. We're thinking about how that might happen, which I think would be great. Now, as people know, I was baptized Catholic, but or at least I've referenced that on the show a lot. But I didn't choose that. I didn't make that decision consciously later in life. And so that's something that I'd like to do at some point in the near future. And we'll probably do that together. And of course, we want all of this to be a part of our children's lives growing up. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see how I navigate this from a parenting perspective, because of course, I've chosen this path for a reason. I want to lead my family and my children down this path. And so I hope that I guess I'll just tell my boys, you guys are Christians, and you're not going to be like Dad. You're not going to be, 3 almost Christiansen boys. You're going to be Christians, and they'll just say, yes, sir. And they'll salute and they'll do as I say. But the truth is, I hope my sons arrive at that faith. And I'll do everything I can to lead them to it. But I also want them to be able to say why. For me, it was such an important thing to reach the why question and to be able to tell people, this was the point for me that I made this decision. Here's why. I want my sons to have that too. So I want something between just like forcing it on them and completely leaving it to them to find that for themselves. I want to lead them to that discovery and be an active participant in it. But it's very important to me that they find their why. So it's going to be something more than just me telling you how it is, though I guess if I tell them how it is and they listen, that's great. But I want them to find that why in their lives, and I'll lead them in pursuit of it. But yeah, you ask how this has impacted our family. I mean, like any family, we have difficulties, we have tough times. The last year has been very stressful with all the things going on in my life, and there's been some things in my wife's life and her family. And I think just having that fundamental reminder that everything that's going on for you has a purpose, your life has a purpose. It's you must pursue it. You can't ever give up. And bonding together over that, despite times of struggle or doubt or questions, that has been very useful to us. And of course, that's true not just for our family. It's true for you, the listener. It's true for everybody. Your life has a purpose. You must continue to pursue it. You can't ever give up. So it's been, in addition to just being what I believe philosophically true, it's been something that's a big help in our lives in a practical sense too. So that's where we stand with faith in my family. But Skulldugger, do you have any faith and family thoughts?
No, I mean, I really like what you said about not trying to impose too much on your sons. I mean, a lot of people come to the faith through what's known as a crisis of faith or a crisis of belief. And that is very unique to the individual because it's going to carve out what your purpose in the faith is going to be. So it's a very unique spiritual, personal thing to each individual, and you can't really impose that. You can't impose your crisis of faith on somebody else. Consequently, you can't have somebody else's crisis of faith. You can only have the crisis of your own faith.
Yeah. When I think of I'm not like, I've taken a grand total of 1 unsuccessful hunting trip in my life, and maybe someday I'll get back into it. But the way I think about this is like, I want to lead them to the shot, but I'm not taking the shot for them. If that's a way to phrase it. Like I want to put them in position to find this, but they still have to find it. We'll see how that plays out. But anyway, thank you, AJ. Carpet. Sunday, Carpet says, Sunday, the discussion came up about Christians celebrating Halloween. Here in East Tennessee, it's extremely popular for churches to host festivals or trick-or-treat events on Halloween. I think the argument can be made, instead of celebrating the demonic, we are taking a perfect opportunity to get families to come into the church that under normal circumstances would avoid it. Halloween is so popular now. I think just a case of making the best of an undoubtedly popular holiday for kids. Sending prayers for Tim's family. Wish you the best. Thank you. And yes, all the best to Tim, and thank you for the well-wishing for him. And yeah, this is with reference to a super chat from Sunday from Purpose of the Ages, who was the chatter. And as I mentioned in that discussion, I get the purely principled argument that Halloween can be viewed as anti-God in nature, or at least if it doesn't celebrate evil or demonic forces, it's certainly kind of organized around the concept. So I get that. I get that Halloween can be viewed as something of a vice in that regard. But as I said then, I think that if you look at it like any other vice, if you can enjoy it in moderation, maintain your focus on what proper values are, maintain an understanding of what you're doing so you can avoid the risks that are associated with that vice. I don't know that it's inherently bad, even if it bends the rules a little bit in the strictest sense. Now, if I ran a church, which of course is a big if because I'm not remotely qualified to do that, but if I was doing that, I think I probably would take that same approach. Like, even if you hate Halloween on principle, is there anything wrong with using the opportunity to try to move people toward God rather than turn your back to the opportunity entirely? And I'm not saying that's what Purpose of the Ages wants. I don't know if that's how he would handle it or not. So I'm not saying that's what he would do. But I agree with the emailer's perspective here that there certainly is an opportunity. And if the point is, hey, Halloween is a little too anti-God, it's a little too demonic, it's a little too evil, well, okay, you can still fight it by pulling people away from the worst of it and toward the church with that opportunity. So I think that's a pretty good way to handle it, if you ask me.
Yeah. And one clarification I would like to make is, rather than just calling everything that doesn't sort of conform to your Christian views demonic, I mean, not to get too...
And I don't know if he used that word.
Here.
I use that word, so I don't want to accuse the chatter of saying that. But
if my memory serves correctly, it was demonic was what was used to describe Halloween.
I just don't know, so I don't want to put words in his mouth. But
Halloween is actually pagan, and I will say there's nothing more Christian historically than co-opting pagan holidays. So,
well, thank you to Carpet. I appreciate it. Okay, white male centrist. Do you think that the right wing has a problem with sometimes being reflexively anti-intellectual in the same way, the left bootlicks experts? Well, I think that after years of the COVID response and the coronation of these experts, I think really any reasonable person is right to be skeptical of claims of intellectual or academic superiority that must be obeyed. And I'm sure there is some of that. Like, if I see a PhD, I think retard. I'm at that point where it's kind of reflexive. And I take your point that on the pure principled level, you should always evaluate any message on its own. You shouldn't evaluate the message by the messenger. And that is to say, like, is an academic study automatically wrong because it's academic and a lot of academia is corrupted with left-wing nonsense? No, that doesn't make it automatically wrong. You're just you might think it is based on suspicion of the biases of the authors. And you might even be right, because more often than not, that might be true. But strictly speaking, we still have to evaluate that study on its own points and on its own merits. But I think the infuriating thing about the last few years of the COVID era, the propaganda was the opposite. It was, don't evaluate the message. Trust the messenger automatically, because after all, the messenger is an expert. So I'm not really that mad at people who reflexively think, all of that was a bunch of crap. I'm trusting nobody. I'm going to distrust by default. But I take your point, white male centrist, that if the point is critical thinking, we want to return to that. We want to evaluate messages, not messengers. You do have to get back to that. You do have to stay committed to that. And you don't accept or reject things automatically based on who brings that information to you. You still have to evaluate the information if you're an honest and open thinker. So I'll try to do that. But like I said, the titles make me think that person's an idiot still. So we'll see if I eventually recover from that. But what do you think about that, Skulldugger?
I don't know if all of it is necessarily the right wing reflexively rejecting intellectualism and being anti. A lot of the times we're excluded from the category of being intellectual because, we don't have the right academic qualifications because we didn't take part in the left-wing brainwashing. And so and then once that starts to happen, there is a snowball effect where then you just kind of like, well, I guess we are anti-intellectuals.
Yeah, who's excluding whom, I guess, is a fair question. Yeah. Nate, thank you, white male centrist. Nate says, hey, Matt, church and marriage are important, but do you recommend any good fraternal organizations? Preferably not gay and not Gnostic like the Masons, but No girls allowed.
That's a big game, man.
So still kind of gay. But I actually need an answer myself to this same question because I became a man in the Fraternal Order of Xbox Live, Skulldugger. I don't know if you ever participated, but you might be a PC Master Race guy. Are you a gamer at all?
I am a PC Master Race kind of guy.
You always been that way? You were never a console pleb?
I had an Xbox 360 for like a couple of months. And
Those were the days.
When Christmas rolled around, I gave it to my niece. So.
I thought you were going to say the Christmas lights, the red ring of death, but hopefully your Xbox survived.
I survived that.
But when I say that, I was a member of the Fraternal Order of Xbox Live, that sounds ridiculous. But the truth is it actually kind of worked insofar as any online community could work for that purpose, because it was effectively a male-only space where guys could talk about guy stuff and sort of exercise some of that competitive energy. And Xbox Live is the whole reason I'm even on YouTube, as I've talked about many times. Like the shit talking that was the Fraternal Order of Xbox Live was amazing, and I look back upon it fondly. And these days, I don't actually have anything in my life like that, and I should. By that, I mean like a uniquely male space where we just kind of like, we talk about things that matter to us, but we also talk shit and we also compete in something. I don't really have that in my life anymore. And I don't actually feel like a craving for it, but I do know that it's probably beneficial and I probably should have something like that. So if I was going to start, if I was in your position, Nate, and I was looking for something like this, and I probably should, and I probably should start, I would actually go to I know you said beyond the church, but I would actually go to my church and look up a particular interest group. That is to say, I know at my church, there are all sorts of groups organized around all sorts of things, different interests, different hobbies, different perspectives, different whatever. I know some of those are, if not by rule, male only, by nature of the interest, they're kind of de facto male only. And the reason I would like to do that too is because I know there's a filter there. There's a sorting mechanism. I know those guys are like, they have something of the right organizing idea. They've chosen to follow Christ. They're at the church for a reason. They must not be like complete psychopaths, hopefully. So at least I have something to bond with them on in addition to the interest. That's where I would go. I know that's kind of a cop-out because you said beyond the church, but that's where I would start personally. Do you have any insider wisdom on that one, Skulldugger?
Yeah, so I actually used to have a group like this. It wasn't any like official structured organization. So if that's something you're looking for, like something that has, like a creed that they follow and has like an order to it, then this probably doesn't apply. But much to what you were saying is there was just a group of guys. Most of us were associated with the same church, but not all. So the great thing was the core guys that started it were all from the church. But then it just became a thing like just invite other guys that you know. And we would meet together once a week on Wednesdays, either at a local bar or at somebody's house. And we would just, drink beer, smoke cigarettes, cigars, pipes, and just talk about, men stuff.
All right. So you're copping out too, though. You're starting with the church.
It did start around a church, but then it wasn't associated with the church. It wasn't a church group.
Yeah, you weren't talking. It wasn't a Bible study or something like that.
Yeah, it wasn't affiliated with the church in any way.
Well, Godspeed, Nate. I hope you find what you're looking for in your fraternal organization. But that's all I got on emails tonight. I want to thank all the emailers. And I'll remind everyone, if you'd like to participate in the show by email or voicemail, just head to the contact page of my website, mattchristiansenmedia.com/contact, or mattis.gay/contact. I think that works too. You can try that out. But before we get out of here, we got to catch up with our super chatters, and then we'll call it a night. I know you guys have been waiting for a while here, so I appreciate your patience. Let's get into those. Over on Rumble, Ramsey C says, like, share, and repost the stream wherever you can. Or go F yourself with a cactus, I think is what that says. Jeez. You must be a shitty little gay self-hating retard leftist if you don't. Well, so I'll take the endorsement. All right. Cool. Baptized once for the remission of sins. Look it up. I don't have a extremely deep understanding of all the competing philosophies on baptism. So I'm not going to sit here and do what I would with marriage and say, I know the organizing principle. I know the purpose of baptism. Let me tell you.
Yeah, you don't want to start that sign.
Let me, when I say that I want to be baptized with my family, the reasons are the conscious choice. I've not done that by conscious choice before, but it's a combination of the conscious choice with the public declaration. And of course, I've made a public declaration by voice on this stream and in the actions of my life in terms of doing the Bible study and joining church and all that. But baptism is a scriptural, biblical gesture. You know, I want to participate in it in a way that actually is a little outside the norm for me. Like, I'm a public person on the internet, but in my day-to-day life, I'm extremely private. Like, I am not seeking... as we were talking about before live, Skulldugger, I'm an introvert by nature. I'm not looking for attention out there. So for me to get in front of a group of people and say, I make this public declaration and I commit this gesture to show you, is kind of a big deal for me. So it's a combination of that conscious choice and something that's a little bit outside the personal norm for me that I want to participate in. And I don't know. I mean, some might say that's not different from your baptism as a child. Maybe it's not. I don't know. To me, there are things about it as an adult that are different enough that I want to do it. So that's the philosophy I'm coming at it from.
I would say if you feel convicted about it, that there's a good chance that that's the Holy Spirit, and you should probably pursue it.
Is there anything wrong with baptism multiple times? Is that like a thing people don't like?
I mean, other people have a problem with it, but I mean, if you don't have a problem with it, baptism is a thing between you and God. Yes, it's a public declaration, so it is a thing between you and your community as well, but it's for your salvation. It's not for anybody else.
I just wonder what the arguments are. Like, this is bad if you do it. Why? And I just don't know what the arguments are. So we could do a new sign tapping bit. You think multiple baptisms is bad? I want to hear from you about why and what I should consider.
You're opening a can of worms here, Matt.
By all means, make me tap the sign.
All right, here we go.
Ramsey C also says, Halloween is a Christian tradition. Seriously, look it up before you speak. Modernization of Halloween is no different than modernization of Christmas. Does it have Christian origins? I don't know the answer to that question. When I grant the point that it's like evil or demonic in nature, I mean, what I'm talking about is those sort of evil spiritual forces like ghosts and goblins and things that are wicked coming to get you and do evil things to you. I'm unaware of a Christian origin, but I just have no idea. Do you have any knowledge on that?
So All Hallows Day or All Saints Day and Halloween do not share. Yeah, they do not share an origin. So if that's what it's in reference to All Hallows Eve or All Hallows Day, they're not the same thing. Okay. It's confusing because calendar-wise they match up, but they have disparate origins.
You know who disagrees with you?
Oh no, is it Google?
The robots do.
Oh.
I'm Googling Halloween Christian origin. Halloween originated from a blend of All Saints Day. Well, wait a minute. Why is this giving me... I copied and pasted this, but it's giving me two different answers. And the AI says two different things in two different windows. The one I copied and put on the screen there is different. The one that I'm looking at over here in a different window says Halloween originated, according to Google AI, as All Hallows Eve, the evening before the Christian feast of All Saints Day, also known as All Hallows Day on November 1st. But you're saying that's incorrect.
From my understanding from back in college, yeah, that's the Halloween and All Hallows Eve are not the same thing.
Okay. I have no idea. So I'll just I will have to say very possibly so, Mr. Ramsey. I don't know the truth on that one. You might be right. I don't know the origin of Halloween. Joshy Boy over on YouTube. We'll get through YouTube and Tippy here. Hey, Skulldugger, you ever read Skullduggery Pleasant by Derek Landy? Really great series up until book 10 when it turns woke.
Oh.
Are you a big reader?
No, I won't. Not a huge reader these days. I was in college and shortly after college, but then I got old. And I ain't got time for that.
Injured Guardian asks, what does the wrench logo or badge mean in the chat? That just means moderator. So I have a couple moderators that help me out. But it means they're chat mechanics. They help out with with the chat, making sure that you guys don't get raided by flat Earth people or something like that. Thank you. Also says SD Skulldugger must watch Rob Roy starring Liam Neeson. I don't know. I wonder why you must watch it. You know, you kind of, I don't know if this is the link, but you kind of have a Qui-Gon Jinn vibe about you. You know, you got the Qui-Gon Jinn look. So that's the Liam Neeson connection to me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I may be wrong. Honest Joe Biden. Always love the honest one. Don't knock my Autopen until you've tried it, Matt. It's so useful. You can have it do your work while you sit back, eat ice cream, and sniff hair. Well, that's very useful.
Come on, man.
Those are great hobbies. I don't know if there's a fraternal order organized around those things, sitting back, eating ice cream, and sniffing hair, but that's an option, Nate. Thank you, Honest Joe Biden. Long Dong John, Skulldugger lives in the Bay Area. I hope he's ready for the incoming November 1st EBT N-apocalypse. I think I understand what that means.
I understand what that means.
I don't think nothing's funny about it.
Is it that kind of N-apocalypse?
I'm ready to shelter in place if I have to.
Okay. Yeah.
Sean made a video about that too. Just like
actual justice warrior.
Yeah.
About what, the coming great food stamp shortage?
Yeah, the welfare queens who are about to go on a rampage when their benefits get cut.
Now, I think this has been discovered and memed, but did you see, speaking of, we'll go back to Google here. Did you see the trend in recent days searching for is they? The auto-filled results for is they?
No.
It was, these were not manipulated. I believe they were authentic, but now everybody's been doing it so much, I'm not sure if it's still accurate. But yes, is they cutting food stamps? Is they cutting Section 8? Is they cutting government program X, Y, and Z? Were authentic autofills on Google.
I don't think nothing's funny about it.
Yeah.
What about over at Axe Jeeves?
Is that? I haven't heard that in ages. That takes me back. Is that still a thing? Is Ask Jeeves still in operation?
I think it turned into ask.com, but I think it's still around.
Jeeves, what happened to him? He died or what?
He got axed. No, it's just they got bought by like Yahoo or something.
Yes, he didn't ask anymore. Instead, he axed.
I don't think nothing's funny about it.
It's kind of funny.
Producer Tim says, update, Dad did come home from the hospital Monday night as originally scheduled. Mom was also home within a day of her going to the hospital. Still some medical challenges for both of us, but they're doing relatively well. Appreciate the well wishes.
We love you. You're very special.
Glad to hear your family's doing as well as possible, all things considered. Also says, happy birthday to your mom, Matt, for this Saturday. We all know it's just scientific fact that the best people are born on the 1st of November. That's true. It's Tim's birthday as well, and you're right. It is my mom's birthday. Happy birthday, Mom. The reason Tim remembers is because it's his birthday. And for those unaware, this is not some weird yo mama joke. That actually is Matt's mom's birthday. You're right. It's correct. Injured Guardian. By the way, Native American truck drivers are okay. Yeah, I assume. First Nation truck drivers, they call them in Canada, right? Indigenous drivers. There's so many terms for that kind of Indian. I lose track of which one is the supposedly correct one.
Yeah, so because we have so many Indian immigrants from India here in the Bay Area, hardly anybody calls them calls Native Americans Indians. It's either Native American or First Nations.
When I lived in Alameda, there were a lot of Indians in my apartment complex, and hope you like the smell of exotic spices, because I had to smell it for 2 years straight. I think that's one of the major reasons I left.
If you live in an apartment complex, you live around Indian people in the Bay Area.
And then I don't know that the Indians did it, but those bastards would file noise complaints on me for playing Xbox Live too loudly. I guess saying too many slurs too loudly or something like that. But yeah, there were a couple times I got notices on my door. Turn down volume, video games too loud. I'm like, these smelly sons of bitches. Stop cooking so fragrantly, and we'll have a deal, okay? Producer Tim also says, shout out to the newish caller, second time on a call, Queso, with an interesting topic that hasn't come up many times before. If people want to call in for the first time, I'm happy to help them navigate the process. Love to hear from new people. That's true, we do. Thank you for your help, Tim. Injured Guardian, it's so cringe. I can't believe they voluntarily do it. Did you ever have to do a Monday morning cheer in retail? It's far worse. I have had several retail jobs. Only one of them, no, a couple of them like kind of corporate. Because I've had retail jobs at like small businesses that generally don't make you do that kind of crap. But I worked at Target for 3 months in Beaverton, Oregon, after my junior year of college. And for various reasons, that was so crappy that's the only job I ever just straight up left. I didn't put in my 2 weeks. I'm out of here. But there are many reasons why I did, and I think they're valid. I won't go into that because it's kind of detailed. But I never put that on a resume either. And then I worked at Hollywood Video, which was a Pacific Northwest video rental store, and I think I've told that story before too. Why would they hire a guy who's never seen any movies to help people rent movies? Well, I knew video games, and they also rented video games, and I just needed a job. And the RA in my dorm worked at Hollywood Video, so he hooked me up with a job. But there was like, I worked there at the dawn of Netflix, and back then it was like Netflix in the mail. Like you get DVDs mailed to you, but people would come in all the time, complain about their late fees. Oh, that's it. I'm canceling. I'm going to Netflix. And I was always baffled. I'm like, yes. Who the hell comes to a physical store to get a DVD and then pays a late fee? I agree. This business model is idiotic. And lo and behold, the business model died, a few years after I was at the tail end of that. But anyway, so I've worked retail. To bring it back to the chat, I've never had a Monday morning. I've never had a cheer component of a retail job. Have you?
So I've never had like a Monday morning cheer thing. But I did in a non-retail job, in an office job, we had Monday morning huddles, which were kind of like this thing that my manager he did it in order to like break the dust off the rust of the weekend and start the week at it and it was all like football themed, even when it wasn't football season. It was cringe. It was very cringe.
Oh, it was like football huddles.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
It was
so did he give you plays? Was he the quarterback or something?
Sometimes, yeah. He would draw up plays on the whiteboard for what the week was going to be like. And he would break the week down into, quarters of a football game.
Really? Okay, so he was like all in on this football thing.
He was totally into it. He was a Vikings fan, by the way.
There we go.
That's a big game, man.
I know I have to stop, but I just can't. Injured Guardian also says there are many idiots with PhDs. I know one who bragged about throwing around loaded shotguns. I'm surprised he was even willing to handle shotguns. Many PhD holders are against such things. But I wonder how that ended. You start tossing around loaded shotguns. That's something close to the Joe Biden advice, though. Buy a shotgun. That's how you defend your house.
Or your dumpster.
Or your dumpster, yeah. Tim also says, I think my favorite thing about watching leftists use the hey, hey, ho, ho chant is looking over the crowd and thinking so many of those fuckers need to put down the ho-hos. Okay, that took me a second, but yes, that deserves a rim shot. As in the dessert cakes, they're fat. But to be frank, they are people who espouse the healthy at any size bullshit. Hey, hey, ho, ho. My ho-hos are the only thing that shouldn't go. I don't know. How do you do a pro ho-ho? Hey, hey, ho-ho chant. That was my attempt. Speaking of exercises in cringe. Purpose of the Ages. He's actually listening tonight on the. So thank you. Appreciate you tuning in. Nothing funny to share today. Just wanted to let you know your video says you're featured on YouTube. Google is obviously broken. Somehow 300 live viewers is impressive for a white Russian. Is they going to fix this shit? I don't know. I don't actually know what's broken. I know that I think I got a message that like something was messed up with the YouTube stream, or that I maybe titled it wrong on accident. I don't know. So if there is some kind of technical problem with the YouTube stream tonight, that might be my fault, because I was in a hurry when I set it up. But anyway, I think that's it. So we will call it there. Anything else you want to talk about, Mr. Skulldugger?
The only thing I wanted to touch on from Sunday was the Glock issue, and I think people are being a little tough on Glock, especially with the whole like cuck claims. When a whole state targets you, your company, and says basically like you can't sell Glocks in this state, and it's a state whose gun laws tend to be replicated in other states. What do you want Glock to do? Just stop selling guns?
Yeah, well, I guess the counter would be give California the finger and say, fine, we're out of your market, we're selling everywhere else. But I also don't know the business reality of their like what sort of revenue hit would that cause. I don't know. I just don't know how realistic that is or not.
So Glocks are one of the most readily available handguns in California because they make all of the, because you have to get on a list in order to be sold as a gun, especially a handgun in California. It's not open. Like you have to be given the okay. So there's like an approved list of guns that you can even purchase in California, and Glocks are the sort of standard handgun. And now to be said that they're going to be taken off. And just keep in mind, California tends to export its gun laws to other states. So it's California today, it's Wisconsin tomorrow, then Michigan, then all of a sudden you have 9-10 states that have this same exclusion. And like what would you like Glock to do? Just
so you're saying they're getting out ahead of what might be a market trend?
Absolutely.
Could you argue the opposite, that they are paving the way for other states to do that they are facilitating and making it more feasible for other states to do that?
Well, I mean, until somebody gets in the way of ever encroaching gun laws, they still have to sell guns. That's how they make money, is by selling guns. So I guess if I was to try to take the other side, and I'm trying to devil's advocate here, if they don't stick up for the market viability, then there are no more guns to sell, because these sorts of people won't stop until they have erased the market, until they've made the market illegal. So giving them that little bit of facilitation is actually ensuring your own demise ultimately. Well, your demise is insured anyway, because nobody is stopping the gun grabbers. So it's not Glock's responsibility to get in there and stop the gun grabbers any more than what they're already doing, which, I mean, they lobby like hell.
That's an interesting debate too. Like, yeah, does a gun company have an inherent responsibility to be political in that way? Or can they just be purely business or manufacturing oriented? They don't enter politics. Normally, I don't think businesses have an obligation to be political. So I suppose to be consistent, I'd have to apply that to gun manufacturers. But the counter is like, your business is inherently political insofar as people want to delete it. So if you want it to survive, you have to enter politics or it won't.
No, I mean, I definitely see both sides. I mean, I definitely see the people saying like, this is a dangerous, like, to lay down this early, kind of without putting up much of a fight, is kind of it's a bad sign. It's a bad signal. Because it tells the gun grabbers, hey, you just throw the laws out there and we'll cave. But
well, thank you for sticking up for Pam Bondi and Glock. They appreciate it very much. All right, we will call it there. Appreciate everybody's participation in the show tonight. Thank you to the live chatters and the super chatters for making the live show a success. If you're listening on demand later, thank you kindly as well for supporting the show. Thank you to our callers, emailers. Thank you to Skulldugger for sitting in tonight. Thanks to producer Tim for his assistance as always. For everything show related, mattchristiansenmedia.com or mattis.gay if you prefer brevity. Back on Sunday night. Hope to see you then.
Good night.